Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my brother, Dagan Moriarty. Dagan, how are you today, my friend? You have your studio.
Hi.
Why do I always forget? It's Ghibli or Ghibli? Why do I always forget? It's Ghibli, right?
Go with your gut on that one.
Go with
I don't even know. I change it. I go for like 50-50 on it.
Right.
What do you say, Matty?
I say Ghibli.
Personally. I like Ghibli. The hard
Ghibli
G
just sounds gross.
Sounds like
giblets.
Sounds like giblets.
Right.
I'm going to go ahead and take these specs off. I don't usually record them. It doesn't feel right.
No, you look.
Who cares
I
if
wore
can't
glasses
see?
for many years, and then I stopped wearing them, and then people were like, it took years for me to even get used to it. Nonetheless,
Yeah,
and people were like, can't you see? And I'm like, hey, hint, I didn't actually need them, suckers. Well, welcome to the show.
Fashion.
Studio Ghibli. Yeah, I it's funny when I know I'm going to say it. So like we're talking about a level 5 game, or it's just coming up. We're talking about whatever Mononoke or something. I'm going into the word not knowing what I'm going to say. Like it's like when you're talking and you're getting to the word. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I really, really love that Japanese animation and I still have no idea what I'm going to say when I get,
It's true. Like maybe it's subject to the bookend words, like whatever just flows better in that particular sentence. I don't know. Listen, I was excited because I'm actually playing a game when it's still relative. And I went back, I finished Dead Space and then went back and was playing the last few hours again because I felt like what happened? I was playing it really late at night and I don't think it was really, I was really absorbing it. So I went back, I was just going back and replaying the last few hours, man. The game is, it's epic. I got to save it because we're going to talk about it eventually.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome. It was an awesome game. I'm so glad that you like it. By the way, talking about reading, I have to highly recommend. Let me look this up.
Please.
I don't recommend podcasts very much. I didn't know anything about this. There is here it is. I was listening to a podcast I really like called Honestly with Barry Weiss, who's a political writer. And it reminded me that there was a podcast that I actually listened to most of called Sold a Story. I don't know if you guys ever heard about this. It's like a mini series about how kids can't really read in the United States. Have you got that 65% of fourth graders in the United States are basically not literate? And it's like this really deep dive about how at some point people started trying to teach kids this different way, like not phonics and pronunciation, but like literally guessing words, like trying to figure out what makes sense by context. And then no one could read anymore.
That's not good.
Highly recommended. Really interesting stuff. That's hysterical. Like people just, what were they doing in the classroom all that time?
Till fourth grade. Yeah. That's questionable.
Fourth. Yeah. That's crazy.
That's
man, if you're not reading by fourth grade, you might as well go start slinging your crack rock now.
Listen, slanging.
We have two very important people to introduce here, but I just have to say, Carl, that timing is funny because it dawned on me the other day. I was standing in the kitchen with my 15-year-old and she was saying, she does very well in school. So I never was really suspicious, but I said, Lil, I never heard you read out loud. You? And I took a piece of paper. I said, read this paragraph, and she read it out loud. And she, it was smooth and fluid, and she didn't miss a beat and everything like that. But I was like, because you don't really know. I never asked her to read anything before. You know what I mean? Could have been really putting her on the spot.
There was
what if she couldn't though? Would that be too late for you, Dagan? Is the question? She would have been so good at getting over at that point with her grades that I would just, I guess I would just say, all right.
She wouldn't have to slang. Did you ever hear? We can go on. I got to introduce the other guys, but people should look up as a postscript. There is a story from a few years ago. I'll try to find it when the other guys are talking about a high school teacher that couldn't read. I gotta find this. It's crazy. It's really awesome.
That's impressive.
Like he just straight up did not know how to read. Anyway, enough about the illiteracy. Lord Cognito.
Yo.
How are you, my friend? Welcome to the show.
Doing good, man. Hanging in. It's been a crazy time. Like I was telling y'all pre-show. Just trying to survive. We got big things next week, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, other than that, man, in the grind and ready for Constellation. We got some fun stuff to talk about, man. Good to see y'all.
Yeah, good to see you too, and thanks for taking the time to speak with us today. And MrMattyPlays, how are you, my friend? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's It's been a week, Colin. Certainly it's been a week. So happy to be here. Part of, as Dustin would now call it, Stelly. And I'd like to put a trademark next to that. We've established some short names here. I claimed last week I was the one who started Hogleg. That was me.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. And then someone tried to write in and say, well, Matt would be pissed if they started calling Battle Network Batnet. And I said, no, we're actually going to start using that too. I'm a big advocate of Stelly. I kind of like the shortening of names. So, I'm just, that has been the highlight of my week. Just watching the entire Last Stand fan base really gather around the shortening of not complicated words at all. And just making a little fun out of it. So, I'm happy to be here on Stelly in the stars, doing well now. So happy to be here and very excited for our topics this week. I always get excited seeing the emails pour in and just seeing what everyone's coming to the show with. So I'm excited to get started.
Cool, man. Yeah, me too. The topics are good this weekend. Welcome. Good to see you. Live show, as we've been alluding to, coming soon. And once we get through that, then we can begin dealing with other projects and other things on our plates. It's a little nerve-wracking having to go. I'm actually not nervous about the show at all. I couldn't give a shit less about that. That's like easy to do. It's just getting there and being there. That's like a problem. I'm not even worried about the show at all. All right, my friends, let's move into the show itself. I'm looking at the topics here. Cog, let's start with you. Actually, I like yours. Nice, easy, breezy.
Yeah,
perfect. I'm curious what you have to say about this topic.
Yeah, vacations, man. Vacations. It kind of dawned on me because I had a conversation with Mama Cog recently, and she was like, "When are you gonna really legit go on a vacation?" I was like, "What do you mean? I travel over the place. I was in Dublin a couple months ago. I was, Cali here. Houston coming up. I've never been there, so I'm like." And she's like, "Yeah, but it's always game related or work. Like you never go and like explore or like learn a culture." And she was like, "Last time I remember, like we took you to Toronto or Montreal or something. You were like a kid, and that was like a trip, and you actually did something actually in England." She's like, "Maybe that was like when I was my teenagers." I was like, "You know what? Kind of right." So I had to really break it down. So I just started thinking about vacations more. And then so the question, I was going to bring to you guys, was just kind of like, one, vacations, do we value them? Do we really take advantage when we go to a new place, that kind of thing? And just in general, or do you think it's kind of like an overrated thing, the whole getaway, the whole mentality of getting away from the day-to-day? Because all of us are busy. We all have our grinds. We all have our day-to-day lives. Colin's running the business. Dagan's doing Dagan things and the whole bit, the career, you know what I'm saying? And Matty, obviously, I know you make a game and stuff. So I'm just curious what all of your mentality was on vacation. And I guess then what may be the ideal vacation, or is it overrated?
Yeah, very interesting topic. I'm excited to hear what everyone has to say about this. Matt, let's go to you first. I want to hear what you have to say about vacation. I get the vibe, by the way, that the three of us are not I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not. We seem to be kind of the workaholic types. And so I don't know that.
That's why I asked.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how everyone answers this because I agree that I should be better as well. But Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, no, Cog spoke to the soul because the way that conversation you have with your mom is the conversation I have with my mom, my fiance, everyone. Just like, when are you taking a break? And it's such a conflict because I work pretty hard, right? And when I finally get that time off, I just want to do nothing and relax at home. I don't want to travel because travel stresses me at times. But like otherwise, I just, when I finally get the time off, I'm like, I just want to be home, connect with my Xbox, my PlayStation, my Switch. I just want to be lazy, do nothing. That's what I did this past holiday break. Like I had 2 weeks off and I did jack shit because I'm always doing something. So for me, doing nothing is my vacation. The last time I traveled for a vacation had to be Florida at the beginning of 2019. And that's a pretty significant gap. But otherwise, Cog, I'm very much like you. My vacations, I put in quotes, are like me kind of two birds, one stoning it. Like I'm out here for work purposes, but I'm going to go see a couple of sites while I'm out here. Mm-hmm. Like PAX is a perfect example. I love exploring Boston, but I'll like come back and get ready for content or something like that. Same thing with when I traveled, I think of when I traveled to Hollywood for Borderlands 2, they had this huge event for it that was awesome. And I remember they flew me in like a day early. So that was my vacation day. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to explore Hollywood and see what's up and just kind of roam around by myself. That's safe, and see how it goes. And, but otherwise, I'm right there with you. And the thing I think I struggle with most, and I'm sure a lot of us here can relate, is I work so much that when I take time off, I worry about falling behind because I am central to so many things working. Content wise, I can't disappear because without me, the channels don't exist. With working on the game, there is a team there, but I'm kind of overseeing things. So if I pull out, there's less structure and less oversight and less organization, not because they can't handle themselves, but just simply because like I'm guiding the vision. So it's like, I got to be there. So when I'm out, they're mostly out too. So nothing's happening. So it's like, you have to be very precise, and it's very rare that all those moving wheels stop at once. Something's always going. So it's very difficult for me to ever take a vacation just because I find myself being occupied by one thing or another, day to day, week to week, month to month. So it's difficult, but I think about it from time to time. And I think, to pass it off, what ends up happening, and I'm curious if one of you does the same, is when it's time for me to start thinking about a vacation, I try to go extreme when I should really just take weekend trips, day trips, those types of vacations. But I'm like, well, no, when I go to Japan, I want to go for a month. It's like, is that even realistic? So that's the conundrum I find myself in. So I'm curious if anyone relates to that or any other things I've expressed here.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I guess I'll jump in here and just say, and I know it's very Colin, and I don't really mean it like that. It's like, I don't like vacations. I like time off. I like time. I like unspoken for time. And that's always what I'm seeking. And I don't get it very often. But for instance, when we take like the 3 weeks off at the end of the year, it sounds a little melodramatic, but it's really not. It's like, those are the only days I actually ever get off. Like, for real, actually try to take off. And otherwise it's just a constant grind. And I don't know that I'd really want it any other way, because I don't know exactly what I would do. But I've had this opportunity working at IGN for so many years to travel into so many places. And I've seen all corners of the United States, been to Canada, been obviously to Europe and Japan and all these different things. And they're great places and they're fun to be. But also going there reminded me in some small way, I'm like, it's not that different, especially when you go to Europe. It's like a half step away from the United States. It's really not. Japan was a much bigger difference, of course, but to me, that's not relaxing. It's not relaxing to think about a 16-hour plane ride. I said that I went to Germany. One time I went to Germany. I was like Frankfurt, so San Francisco to Frankfurt, I think 16 hours in the middle seat in the middle row. You know, so like for people that don't know, international flights are like usually like 3 or 5 seats at the ends, and in the middle it could be like 5, sometimes 7, depending on how big the plane is. And I'm in the middle of that thing. You know, and it's like, I don't want to. No, there's no place on the planet that's worth this. Sorry, I don't live in the middle of a third world. I'm not trying to be an asshole. It's like, I don't live in the middle of a third world country or some horrible civil war strewn fucking locale. I live in the United States. I don't need to go anywhere. And I feel that way. It's not to say I'm lucky. I was born here. But to me, when I've gone to Germany, when I've been to England, when I've gone to, I went to Iceland, I'm like, I don't know. When I was in Iceland, it's like the whole thing. Like I spent a day in Iceland. What would it be like? I spent a year in Iceland one day. It's like, holy shit, get me the fuck out of here. You know? It's beautiful for a minute. And then you realize that there's nothing to do. Yeah, and it's like, okay, I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do here. So it's like, there's only so many Vikings things you can see. And like, it's too much. And so I like getting time off, but I'm just not crazy about going on vacations. And I think the last time that I went on vacation is like, it was my ex-girlfriend used to like to try to go places for weekends. So we used to go to Vegas a lot. And I think that, and I love Vegas, but I didn't really look at that as vacation. I would basically not even sleep when I was in Vegas for 2 days and then just leave and go back to LA. It was just me just fucking gambling and losing money. And then we would go to places like Palm Springs or San Diego, Mexico, but I wasn't really, I don't know. I'm just like, I'm always looking forward to being back.
Yeah.
It's not that I want to work. It's that I want to like meld into my chair. Being with Micah is so nice because it's one of the reasons why we're so simpatico. It's just like, what do you want to do tonight? I don't know. Her answers is like, I just want to play Switch or let's watch HBO or something. And then I'll sit there and play Harry Potter or Hogwarts Legacy. And she's sitting, Indian style on the couch playing Switch and we're with the dogs. And we're just hanging out. It's perfect. It really is. I'm taking major bong rips. It's fucking awesome.
So is your vacation, like what Matty said, more so the ability to not have any work responsibility, like you said at the end of last year, where you theoretically could just be home, do nothing, and keep it? Is that vacation for you?
That's vacation. That's like, and that's the goal. And I would like to be able to make another one of those every year, like in the middle of the year. It's just hard. Like it's, as I think Matty was saying, and I feel the same way, and we probably all feel the same way in some sense, is that I have to be present, especially for me. Like I am a very reluctant leader. I think that's obvious. Like I don't like being the leader, but I am nonetheless the leader. And if I'm not in the trench, then like, why would you ever listen to me? So like when we're crunching in November and early December to be done for 3 weeks after that, it's like, I'm doing it just as much as everyone else. And so I don't like to, I guess what I'm saying is that for me to get time off, I have to ask that of everyone. Like we have to and coalesce around that goal. And I don't know that our goals are really lined up for that, except for at the end of the year where we can all kind of agree. So it's just the way it goes. Otherwise we miss weeks, and then we become like other podcast companies that are just simply not as good. You know?
There you go.
Before I want to dig, I want to throw this to you and hear what you have to say about this. I did want to ask Matty one question though, before I forget. Are there still preview junkets? Because it just doesn't seem like anyone's getting invited to media things anymore. It just seems like the gaming industry has totally changed, which I would be thrilled about if I was still in the grind.
It's interesting because we're starting to see the announcement. Like I think Activision said that workers are going to start heading to office now. And they're going to split their weeks up between at-home work and in the studio work, and a lot of people are displeased by that. So
no doubt.
I feel like with that returning, we may start to see those preview events return. But yeah, man, I have not been invited to even online ones in ages. Like the last in-person one I went to was, I can't even remember, man. It's been so long. Like it is no longer, I think, fundamental to the industry. And it's something I said for a while. Like I remember, not to spin this into a huge story, but like when we went to test Fallout 76, they hosted it at the fucking Greenbrier. Like they rented this place out, like whole rooms there, like this huge estate. I'm like, this had to have cost an insane amount of money alone, let alone getting all the rigs there, everything set up, the after party. It was like a multi-day event.
And traveling and putting your people up, you know?
Yeah, right. You got to put people up. And right, you know they do this to try to cushion you up so you give it a softer opinion. I didn't give a shit. I was like, I'll take the free vacation and just cover the game as is. But I just always wonder, I'm like, how does this financially make sense to them? Like this is probably so much money when you could just give us a code on Steam and let that be that. But I think they're afraid of objectivism or something like that. So, but those have dramatically slowed down. And I mean, granted, as I've become more outspoken, I definitely lose more opportunity. I mean, I don't care because the viewership goes up. So it's like, you know, who are we really trying to please here? But the reality is like, yeah, they just are pretty much done. Like the last one, actually, I got invited to one in New York City for like a Dragonetian, but just they hit me up during my vacation. I was like, no. I was like, no, I'm not going anywhere. So yeah, that was the last one. I was very surprised by that.
I hated previewing games, and it was like the worst thing for me. I hated it. And
I enjoy it quite a bit, but just, you know, I don't need to travel to California because now I get like jet lagged. We already talked ad nauseum about my issues with flights. So I already know I'm going to be fucked up for weeks afterwards. So yeah, it's not, to me, it's not worth it anymore.
Yeah. I was just curious about that. It's funny you bring up Bethesda because when they revealed Skyrim and Prey, the one that got canceled.
Oh yeah.
And a couple other things. They flew us to Utah and they rented out the entire Stein Eriksen Resort, which is like a major ski resort there. And it was off season, but it must have cost, I don't know. I would assume for the entire thing they were doing like low six figures. And I was wondering, like, yeah, it's easy to understand if Bethesda or ZeniMax has an operating income for the year, meaning profit of like a few $100 million, let's say, then they just say like, we just peel off $500,000 of that and just pay for this. It doesn't matter to them at all, you know?
Yeah, it's
so
possible.
It really is that simple, you know? Unfortunately, that's the kind of money we're talking about. Dave, let's hear from you about vacationing. You are well known in our family, and I would imagine that the audience gets this vibe as a workaholic. I think you and I both got it from our dad. I don't think Dana and Allie have it. Like we've talked about that in the past. They're hard workers, but they don't live to work like we do. And our dad was very similar. And I don't know if there was some sort of nature nurture thing. And like, we were like, we have to be like our dad, you know, and people might remember, like our dad was a New York City firefighter and he was also the manager of a supermarket produce section at the same time. And he was doing like random iron work and he was doing like chimney sweeping, all these random jobs. Like he would just
Wow.
never be home. That's why our parents ultimately got divorced.
Yeah, 5-6 jobs, moonlighting like crazy.
Yeah, he was crazy. He was just it was absolutely insane. Like I would never be able to grind like that, but I respected it and I think I absorbed it in some way. So anyway, I'm curious what you think about this topic of vacationing.
Yeah, I suspected this would be the four musketeers of extreme work ethic here. So it's an interesting conversation. For me, it's kind of a dual-pronged thing. I do think vacations are important. Now, I have a wife in Helene who's also got a really amazing work ethic and really loves her job and is all about like performing and doing awesome work, but she is cognizant of needing a break and going on vacations, especially as a family, because what I realized later on, since we had kids especially, was that really the vacation times are those times to connect. Because when you're running around during the main chunk of the year, it's the hustle and bustle. It's the family rat race. The kids are going to school. We're juggling our careers. We're taking care of the house. We're kind of dividing our forces, shuttling one kid there and one kid over here. We're always running around, and it's just like a rarity to even connect for 15 minutes at dinner sometimes. Like it gets that frenetic. So the vacations are a good reminder of just coming together as a family and spending it sounds like a trite thing, but it's really true. Like just spending quality time as a family and reconnecting as like a unit and just enjoying each other outside of that hustle and bustle, outside of that fast paced thing, which is, 90% of our lives. So Helene's always a good reminder of that and has totally taken charge of like the Disney vacations that we've gone on. And we're also very fortunate because we have a built-in, the kids go to school and Helene's a high school teacher. So we have the built-in summers where they could go down to the beach. Helene's family has a beach house in Jersey, in South Jersey. So the whole summer is kind of built around that. Those 2.5 months of like, and I'll go back and forth on the weekends because I obviously usually don't work Saturdays and Sundays. So we have that built into at least, a quarter-ish of the year, which is really nice.
Nice.
But one thing about vacations that I've been mindful of probably for the last couple of decades that kind of dawned on me and haunts me a little bit, probably around the time I left for college, where I got sort of my mind around this philosophy, which was, I grew up on Long Island in New York. That's all I really ever knew besides our family vacations to wherever. And when I moved to go to college in Philly, my late teens and early 20s, only 100 miles away from where I grew up, but that was enough of a change of environment and atmosphere to make me realize like, wow, it dawned on me, like, how can you really know where you're going to be happy in life unless you kind of see the world? The world's a big place, different geographies, different climates, different people, cultures, different histories. There's such a diverse amount of places to choose from. And, I do also have that component of my personality similar to Kyle, where it's like, I do love the comforts of home and the familiarity. I love the Northeast of the United States. It just feels warm and fuzzy. And I do have that part of my personality where I'm kind of eyeing home even as I'm walking out the door for vacation, because I like that comfort. So I do have that. But that sort of mentality of, well, how do I know what I really love unless I've seen and witnessed everything, kind of keeps me honest. So I do have that sort of part of my personality that's like, I kind of want to see, like, I kind of want to spend time in the South of the United States. I want to see France. I want to see Japan. I want to go and see other places of the world. Like, I'm fascinated with certain cities that I hear are awesome, like Copenhagen. I've been hearing about Copenhagen for like 3 decades, how cool Denmark is and how cool Melbourne, Australia is. So how do you really know where you want to be unless you witness these places? So that kind of keeps me on this, it kind of tempers the more cowardly side that just wants to stay home with the adventurous side of like, no, let's strike out and really see, because maybe that's where we want to be. And I think Helene and I have gone through that with South Carolina and Georgia specifically, because those are 2 places that we've been that we could see living. And that kind of opens up our possibilities for a little later in life or relocating. I may have a job offer in Atlanta that I don't know if I could take right now, but eventually maybe I could start remote and end up down there, you know, especially if my daughter goes to school at SCAD or something. So there's that whole thing where that, you know, thank God I do have that sort of aspect of my personality where it's like I do feel there's a sense of guilt for not traveling. You know, we went to Toronto this first time over the summer. I really had no concept of what that city was going to be like. And it was so cool to discover it because it's a really big city. You know, it's like a really big metropolitan city, clean. The people were cool. There's a lot. It reminded me a lot like of New York.
It's definitely like New York.
It's like New York cross Philly for me. And so, you know, it's nice to have that sort of adventurous side. And again, a lot of that is Helene being responsible for saying, like, let's have a little zest, a little sense of travel, a little sense of adventure. And then you could kind of plug that into also where you want to end up. You know, you don't have to stay in the same spot. And if you're already content with where you're at least going to see the world. And there's something that bothers me about, I know I'm not going to be able to see everything on this planet before I die, but that really bothers me. Like, and I'm getting older. So it's like, you know, there's something really fulfilling about just being able to take in as much as you can.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Little 3 dad advice to their son, if you will. You know, Colin the dog dad. Dagan's got a family. Cog, you got the son who likes the mobile games, apparently.
My fictitious son.
I'm curious, Dagan, what you said kind of spoke to me a bit because I'm getting to that point where Laylee and I, you know, we're engaged. We're looking for a place right now. And we're kind of in that spot where like we want to travel, but we want to be considerate of our parents. And we want to kind of find that middle ground. But the way you're talking of like Georgia, Atlanta, and so on and so forth, I'm thinking like, you know, when do you feel comfortable stepping in a reasonable distance away from your family? Because it's kind of been a point of us where we could easily find spots around the globe, but we're like, well, you know, we want to be considerate of the family. And I asked that because like I had a family member who stepped away for a while and when, not to make it morbid, but like when my Mimi passed away, they're very filled with regret that they didn't come around as often as like we did. Like we were always around and hanging with the family. So it's kind of like built into me. I'm curious, not to pull it off of vacations, but just what you said spoke to me where I'm like wondering, when do you feel comfortable or do you never feel comfortable with that like full step away where it's like, yeah, I can't come and see you for the weekend, for example?
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's awesome. It's an awesome question. And it's an awesome point because this is something that I think a lot of couples contend with. You know, it's a basic thing in life when you get together and families and aging parents and all that. I will tell you early on, because Helene and I have been together for a long time, been married for 20 years. We've been together for like 26 or 27 years, met in art school. And I told her from very early on, and if Helene gelled with my plan, we probably would have been living in California still from the late 90s onward. And she told me very early on, like as things got serious with us, that I'm not comfortable leaving my parents and my family. She was very much of that mind where we have to stay in the Northeast. And for me, it was always a little bit of a bone of contention, especially early on, and it was easy for me, admittedly too, because our family was already spread to the 4 winds. So for me, it wasn't like, you know, my dad was in New York, my family was already transplanting down south. Like everybody was all over the place anyway. So for me, it wasn't something that I really had to deal with where, let's say if our mom and dad stayed together and stayed planted on Long Island, it might have been more of an issue for me. So that was always something that we had to wrap our head around. I tell you what's interesting though, as we get older and as Helene's parents get older, they're a little older than our parents. So in their mid 70s now.
Got it.
I could see her more inclined to think about relocating now as we talk about like, let's go down to Georgia. Even if you can't finish your tenure teaching, we could teach at SCAD. SCAD's been courting Helene to teach down there for a long time. And that's the Savannah School of College of Art and Design. Okay. And
that's where my best friend from childhood, Mike Pope, that comes up sometimes on the show.
That's right. I forgot Mike graduate. That's nice. Right. Was he Atlanta or Savannah?
Savannah.
He was in Savannah,
which I think is that's like the
main, the main hub.
He loved it there, dude. He loved it there.
Atlanta's a really cool place because they're doing the Austin thing on the East Coast. A lot of the entertainment, a lot of tech is moving there. So it's another option for people, whereas in TV, especially in animation, you had to be in New York or California. Now the options are opening up. But it's interesting to see Helene, as we get older, get more inclined to the fact of being further away. She said to me a few years ago, she was like, if you could get a job at either Google or Pixar, I'll consider moving to Napa, like Northern California. If you could get a job at one of those two places, that it'd be like a dream job for you, I could consider, uprooting and all that stuff. But you know what, Matty? I think it's important for couples to just kind of be honest about that, like lay it all bare as early on as possible, and just kind of respect each other with it. It was harder for me in my career because I had to always be beholden to New York before the remote thing sort of blessed us. Right. With being able to work from anywhere.
Sure.
But, and just kind of, and it's a little bit of compromise on both ends, but maybe it pays off for me in the end, because maybe we will be able to go somewhere that's a little easier and the commute's a little better. So just to be honest and open about that stuff early on is just, for me, that was always the real deal. Like, let's say Helene was never really honest about that. She was afraid of us splitting up. She would have went to California. She could have been very unhappy, resentful. So I think it's important to just kind of be on the level with each other when it comes to where you want to be and what you want to do and what your expectations are with that.
Absolutely. And I appreciate it. Because it's never been like contentious between us on it. It's just more so like when you were talking about that distance, it planted the seed in my head. And I was curious on, just because you seem kind of like lax about it. I was like, I wonder, like, when do you feel, or if you ever did feel comfortable with that type of space? But yeah, it makes sense given how your family had spread apart. Like our family's always been in the same spot, the same people for a long while. So it's very different in my case. But no, I really appreciate you telling me that.
Sure. Yeah, that could be hard. That's a hard thing. And that's and sometimes you just have to say, maybe we'll travel, but then there's a cost that, we could travel a lot, holidays, 6 times a year, whatever, but then the cost involved. Yeah. So it's complicated. It is. That's a complex thing.
For sure.
It comes up on Knockback a lot because it's obviously a very emotional and nostalgic show, but it comes up, it reminds me often about how, like, our parents getting divorced really fucked everything up. like we were like the Moriartys and the Ruggiros, the Italian side, were all on Long Island for generations. And it was that moment. And I think Dagan would agree that really like split everyone up. It wasn't that, people went to college and did different things upstate, and Dagan went to Philly and all of that. But actually that happened after they got divorced. And I always think about that. I think that's why I'm like, and I've iterated this before, but I am clearly anxious and depressed and all that from that moment in my life, not because of the split, but because of what the demands of that situation put on such a young person. And I think I was used to being, it's like Christmas is coming up. I've said this before, Christmas is coming up. I have to go to Long Island. Like if I'm living with my mom in New England, it's like I have to go to Long Island. If I'm on Long Island, I have to go to New England. And you're in transit and you can't be in your space and you're missing things and you have to do things twice. And I actually told our dad when he was here, he stays with me like every couple months to see everyone because I have the most space to like be able to accommodate him. And I was saying to him that, it's so funny, like how just crazy everything was in hindsight and how I was never able to just stay still, and that I'm totally divorced with, like I told him, I'm like, I'm done with divorced parents Christmas. Like it's over now. I'm not doing this shit like over and over again anymore. And so I think that I'm tying it back and saying that I think that is a specific reason why I don't want to go anywhere. I really have identified that as if I've gotten older. I'm seeing a new therapist now, and I was talking to him and I was like, I really feel like I've just become very self-aware. Not totally. There's things I don't understand, many things I don't understand, but in the last few years, I've like really honed in my like mid to late 30s on why I am the way I am. And so there's nothing wrong naturally with traveling, vacationing, all those things. It just doesn't vibe with me in the way that I wish it would. And, you said something, Cog, I wrote down I wanted to touch on real quick, which is this idea of learning a culture. I think your mom said, like, learn a culture, go learn a culture, right? And it reminds me of this old European and American idea of the grand tour, right? Like you would, for a half year, you'd like go dick off in Europe and you would see it, and that would be like your one trip there. And that's like a really cool thing.
Love that.
And I feel like that's dope. Takes you a long time to get there. You really want to see it. You live with people for months and go do it. It's a very neat idea, but we don't live in that world anymore. And while it's easier to get everywhere, like for instance, Micah and I are going to probably go to Australia Japan and South Korea for our honeymoon.
Better not be in that middle seat.
I'll be in that first class seat. Yeah, so we're like, we're gonna go very kind of grand tour style. I've been to Japan a couple times. She's obviously a huge nerd and she wants to see it. But I'm like, we're gonna go grand tour style. We're gonna go to the other side of the world. So we might as well go to Australia. We might as well just go up just go up Asia, right, and then leave. And so we're gonna do that, but it requires a lot of effort. And I feel like this idea of learning a culture, all you have to do is go on the internet. And I know that sounds lame, but I think we're in a place now. I'm reading about things all the time. I'm watching videos, Bald and Bankrupt, or videos like this that are on YouTube of dudes just traveling all over the world. I feel like I know these places more intimately than I could have ever imagined, having not been to those places. And so I wanted to throw that out there too, that I feel like though travel is easier than ever and can be facilitated and is natural, and you should do whatever you want, I feel like it's almost not even as necessary as it ever was. Like, imagine if you grew up in, I don't know, you grew up in Baltimore in fucking 1810. I mean, you're not going to see shit. Like you might see Washington, D.C., Philadelphia. Maybe you got to New York or Boston if you were lucky, or to Charleston. Yeah. And that was your life. But more likely you didn't go within like 20 miles of where you grew up. And that to me that's the perils of not being able to see things. But we're not in that world anymore. I could not leave this room and have a global perspective, in my opinion.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. And just to add on,
please.
As well, was that I learned that prior to my Dublin trip, and like people were doing these comprehensive breakdowns on YouTube, and like what not to say to Irelanders, and then the relationship with Britain, and so they were like, yo, be careful here, do this, and it was so interesting. So it's almost, I see what you're saying in the sense that a lot of the bridges have been crossed from us from the information standpoint to now kind of seep down to us. So no, I agree. I think it's a different time. My mom is from that time where it was like she'd grab, they grab the whole family up, we jump on a plane, we're going to England, we have friends, we'd stay for like 2-3 weeks.
That's awesome, dude.
Family.
I mean, that's worldly, dude. I mean, that's truly worldly.
Yeah, like they're from that. Like I was that at like 7 and 9 and that kind of stuff. But it's just changed now. So it's interesting you said that, because I literally learned about so much other cultures just sitting there watching videos all day. It prepped me perfectly when I actually had to go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of power in that. It's sort of in line with what you guys are talking about, but it's also, I just think it's a really cool YouTube channel that I think especially Colin, you'd like. It's called NASS, N-A-S-S, and they remaster footage from like the 1940s and 1950s.
Oh yeah, I've seen this shit, dude. Amazing.
This channel is incredible. It's sick. There's no real like story app. It's just people living in these time periods. And I just watch these videos endlessly. Like if you just type in 1950s remaster, you'll see A Day in Los Angeles, 1950s in color. It's amazing. Wonderful New York, early 1950s. And it's real, man. It's real. And you just get to see the way of life. There was one I was watching where actually a guy was getting chased down by the cops on foot. And it was like straight out of a movie. Like he stepped out of a place, left, right, ran. And you saw 2 cops come after him. I was like, that's incredible, that the timeliness of that all.
That's a moment.
And it's just, it kind of just, I think, lends credence to like, you can experience all eras and now truly see life, well before my time through the internet. Like it's so I think, Colin, it only lends credence to what you were saying.
Yeah, this is cool. I've never seen this before. Wow.
Yeah, there's one. I don't know if it's that channel, but because I've watched that stuff and that's good shit. Mike and I watch so much weird stuff on YouTube at night. But there's this one video that I really love that I think Chris talks about that I've also seen, which is like HD, like 4K footage of New York City. Do you know the one I'm talking about? But it's from like 1990. So it's like, it's like a Japanese news crew using like very high tech 4K style cameras, but 35, 40 years ago. And they're in New York City and it's like, holy shit, this is amazing. That's like it's like filmic and weird. It feels like you're time traveling because not only are you seeing it, but you're seeing it in the highest quality as if you're there. I'm like, but you're not supposed to be able to see this in that quality. Like our memories are hazy. It's like the screen door effect in VR, like
that's incredible.
To me, it's the fashion sense. Like just seeing the fashion in all these eras. That's the thing that lights my fire. I'm just like, that's awesome.
Love it. Are you satiated on your topic of vacations? Anything else to say?
Nah, you guys nailed it. That was fun. I really appreciate the perspectives.
Yeah, that was cool, man. Thanks for bringing that to the table. Dag, let's go to you next.
Sure.
Talk about something eerie.
Guys, I just know eventually I'm going to see a ghost. And I love getting people's perspective on this because it's very white or black. I believe this or I don't. I go in for the supernatural or I don't. And my fascination and fear of ghosts and the supernatural runs deep and really goes far back with me. It's funny. I was thinking about this the other day. It's an old Steven Spielberg interview. And, he talks about his fears and that he's afraid of everything. And that always resonated with me because I think I'm just like the biggest coward in the world. And, he says like literally like I'm afraid of enclosed spaces. I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid of the ocean. I'm afraid of monsters, things under the bed, the dark, aliens, furniture with legs. Like he just goes on and on like all these fears. And I'm like, as he's saying it, when I'm watching this years ago, whether it's a Charlie Rose interview or something, I'm like, yep. And so I realized, that I've always kind of been that way as a kid, just kind of like a big scaredy cat. And Colin, this really resonated with me because you just said this a few minutes ago along the same lines of as you get older, you start to realize the source of these things and you kind of can examine the roots and you're like, oh my God, this is from this, when this happened to me. And sometimes it could be a very specific thing. And before I get you guys' take on this, I want to tell you a story about, I think, where kind of like all my fears came from. And I was in second grade. And we had this really cool thing in our elementary school library. Colin would eventually go to the same elementary school. In the library, which is a very big part of the building, it was a really cool library. And they had this little tiny, like, sort of amphitheater wing of the library kind of dipped down. And the kids could sit around in this kind of half circle on these stairs. And then the librarian or the guest reader or whatever would be in the center and read the kids a story. And then the last 10 minutes of library, you could go and dispatch and take out a book or whatever. But mostly it was story time. And sometimes there were really interesting guest readers that would come in, whether it was authors or other people. Sometimes it would just be parents. But I remember this one specific lady because she was fascinating to me. Again, I'm like 7 years old. Here comes this lady. I believe she was Jamaican. She was wearing like a really beautiful, colorful dress. And she had this gorgeous like beaded jewelry on. And she might have had like a really cool like headscarf kind of tied in with her hair. And I remember her sitting down to read. And she just looked amazing to me. And then she started to speak and her voice was so melodious and soothing. And I was like, oh shit, this is going to be good. And she was so like kindly and warm and everything. But she read us what turned out to be this Jamaican ghost story. And dude, it was fascinating, but it makes me laugh because I think this kind of shit probably had to stop in the 70s in elementary school. Like if only people that went to school, like if you went to school in the 80s and 90s, I'm sure this shit was like people thought better of this stuff by then. But I do remember at the end of it, like just 18 to 7-year-olds like wide-eyed with their mouths agape, like what the fuck did she just tell us? And it was basically a story about a ghost that would come in at night to a kid's home if they were misbehaving and sort of taunt their victim by telling them where they were as they approached. Like, I'm in the door now. I'm on the first step. I'm on the second step. And then it was like this thing, like this drawn out story of this ghost approaching this sleeping kid until at the end, it's like, I'm right by the bed and I got you type of thing. And then I was like, oh my God. Like from that moment on, I think I was petrified of just the
And then she was like,
ghosts.
and that's the story.
And thank you very much. Everybody's like, oh my God. Like half of us probably wet our pants. Like it was, I'll never forget it. It's such a vivid memory. Like I could really see it still in my mind's eye. And then but I've never seen anything. And you know, the other thing that ties into this, I think with me is that I'm a night owl. I always have been. So, and I think part of this, we talk about growing up and, you know, the direct results of things that happened to us growing up. My parents used to make me go to bed in the summertime at like 7:00 at night while I heard kids 5 years younger than me still playing in the street.
Oh, that's just evil. That's just evil.
So I think a direct reaction of that was when as soon as I got older and got autonomy was I'm going to stay up as late as I can. I really do think it's because of that.
I think I was the same way, man. That's so funny.
It's like, I'm just going to lash out against bedtime rules. And so I think part of that is, to this day, I stay up till 2, 3 in the morning. And the other thing is that, but I never seen anything, although I do believe it. I heard a really fascinating thing the other day. Somebody, and who knows where this theory comes from, because how can we ever know? But they said what they think the dead coming back to haunt humans are, ghost stories or, ghost sightings, are that the dead feel unsatisfied with the amount of love or the amount of memory that they invoke in somebody. In other words, they're not being remembered to their satisfaction, or beloved or missed to their satisfaction. So hence they come back, which I thought was really cool.
That's not unsettling in any way.
That's kind of, and especially when you live in suburban Philadelphia. I mean, this is one of the oldest places in the country. So I'm just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. But one ghost story I heard from somebody I know who's a reliable source was one of Helene's best friends, still to this day, but years ago she told us this story. And it always struck a chord with me because this girl, Kristen, very smart, good head on her shoulders, like not the wacky and wild and woolly type at all, like kind of a reliable source for this story. She had this crazy ghost story and she was like, it's the only time I've ever witnessed anything like this. She was house sitting for her uncle. Now, her uncle's house was nearby, and I think when the mom and uncle's parents got elderly, he took them in eventually. So they lived there until they died. But they had passed away. It was just the uncle's house. I guess it was a big place, old place. And Kristen was house sitting for the weekend. And she said one night she was sleeping on the couch, kind of half awake, watching an old movie on TV or something. And she heard footsteps come down the stairs, which always reminded me of the Jamaican lady story in my elementary school library. And she heard it very systematically. And as, each footfall on each stair got closer, she got a little more awake. And then hit the bottom stair, heard the footsteps come over. And then she said she looked over to the couch cushion next to her because she had been sitting up by this point. And the couch dipped in like somebody was sitting next to her. And she was just frozen. Like she was so afraid that she just couldn't speak. She couldn't move. And eventually I think she ended up just falling asleep. And she was like, I could never really explain what happened. It was just one of those anomalies and, one of those unexplainable things that I know in a concrete way did happen to me. And I just always think about that. Like, why? Like, I think if I witnessed something that vivid, it would drive me insane. Like, how can you go on in the same way knowing that proof positive that ghosts
that sounds
exist?
That sounds like a sleep paralysis episode to me.
And you know what? My best friend PJ, I think, had sleep paralysis episodes where he would say like he would feel somebody grabbing the covers on either side of him and pressing down. So he would be pushed down into his mattress. And I think he had a couple of episodes while I slept over the house with him. So I never really knew if that was as much on the level, or if that was something more of his own sleep paralysis or something that was happening with him mentally when he was sleeping or something. But the Kristen story always struck a chord because it was a one-off for her. She had never seen anything mysterious again after that. And I think she was probably in her late teens when that happened. So that was always a big thing for me, is like, I do wonder if something like that happens to me, how I'll deal with it and how I'll process it. So I'll pass it on over to you guys. Matty, take it away, my friend.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm like a very staunch, hand waver, but I when it comes to ghosts, but it's funny because at the same time, there's that inkling of doubt in me where I'm like, well, what if I see one? And I'm like, well, then am I a believer because I'm even considering it? I've never really had any supernatural encounters. And it's funny because Colin brought up a sleep paralysis episode, because I think the closest I had to it, I'll tell a story about a fucking weird dream I had. So I was asleep in my dream, right? I'm asleep in my bed in my dream, already starting off weird. And I guess I had a butler for some reason or another. And, I hear this kind of like Alfred kind of, it's me, sir. I'm like, like I'm like half asleep in my dream, just like, yeah, whatever. And he's like, wake up, sir. And, I just kind of start to open my eyes. And again, like as I'm opening my eyes, I'm in my bedroom. Like it's a familiar locale. And all I see is kind of this suit. And, I couldn't see the face, but I just see a suit. I'm like, oh, it's my butler, right? and so, he says like, he goes, it's me, sir. You have to get up. And as he does, he leans forward. And I see this for Persona fans out there. I see like an Igor-like character, like that kind of long nose, ugly old fuck. And I'm just like, oh, shit. So I take action. I do the opposite. I dive for this motherfucker. I'm like flying out of bed. And I fly out of bed in real life now. And obviously I catch nothing but air. And I'm like, was that a ghost or like, did I just fight off? Like, what happened there? It's always stuck with me, right? It's only time, much like your friend, only time it's happened to me, only time. But I respect myself for taking action. I didn't think I'd be like that fight or flight with it, but I really came out swinging. But obviously it turned into thin air as I lunged for it and I woke up. But yeah, that was like the only time I've had what I thought maybe a supernatural encounter. And maybe they've never come back because they were like, damn, that guy's gonna throw hands if we show up again.
Be ready.
But that's about it for me. Otherwise, I've had friends tell me stories where a buddy of mine was like climbing up into his attic and he was about to fall and he felt a hand catch him and he looked behind and it was his grandma. And he sprinted out of the house afterwards. I was like, that's intense. Like
that's nuts.
Yeah. Like I don't think people, because I'd say I'm around people who aren't just hallucinating. So I hear things where I'm like, I don't think everyone's just lying. Like I think there's got to be some type of supernatural nature to our world. My dad's obsessed with that stuff. It's pretty much all the TV he watches. He loves this stuff. So there's a part of me that buys into it, but like maybe for my own comfort, Dagan, I'm like one of those people who just pretends it doesn't exist. Because I much like you, am a bit of a fraidy cat, and I feel like I don't know what would happen to me at that point moving forward. Like maybe I'm just being spared by the spirits until I can handle it. Because if that one encounter I had wasn't a spirit, it was just a dream, then who knows if I'll be ready to throw hands if the time comes. So that's where I stand on it, man.
It's a great point. I wonder if it's only for the people who can quote unquote handle it, or maybe that with being able to handle it comes the capability of actually being able to see it or witness it or appear to you or something. I do wonder about that. The mystery of it is compelling, but I think I have that cynical side too. It's like if I'm 49 years old and I'm such a deep believer in this and it's haunted me for so many years, why haven't I seen something yet? There's almost a little frustration with that too.
What gets me is my dog. My dogs get me because they'll be the ones who pick their head up and just kind of look at something on the wall. And I'm thinking, because there's the theory that I think dogs can see like angels or something like that. I'm like, what the hell are you looking at, man? That's the one that gets me is less the people and more my dogs. Because then I buy into that a little bit. I'm like, you're looking at something. You're not just staring at the wall. You're a young, intelligent dog. So what gives here?
He's just thinking about kibble. That's usually what we think Rush is doing. We make fun of Rush because we looked at the intelligence charts for dogs, and Boston Terriers are 100th out of 138 dog breeds in intelligence. So I'm like, wow, that explains a lot to these guys. I'll tell you.
It's not just poor Rush. Dogs in general, right? Are they super sensitive or are they like super stupid? Like, or is it just like an intelligence that we can't comprehend? Somewhere in between, we judge it by human standards.
Like I think it's something like in between.
We just need technology to get to the point where we can understand them. Like they don't have to bark at us. Like I feel like that's just so overdue.
It really is.
I have a fantasy of it's funny, Mike and I talk about this and ask like, what would you say? Like, I'm like, what if there could be like 1 minute, 60 seconds where it's like you could talk to the dog and be like, you listen to me, we can understand each other. I'm about to tell you a bunch of really important shit. Like when I'm doing this is what I mean. This is what this means. This is what you have a question about this. Okay. Like, and you have just 60 seconds to just figure all of it out. And then you can never talk again. Like, what would you,
why?
Because it was like, what would you learn about each other? And like, what would be the fundamental things that it's like, I can be like, why don't you listen to me when we walk? Can you just listen to me when we walk? And it's like, and you'd be like, oh, I didn't know it was that important to you. Okay. I'm sorry. And then like, and he'd be like, so what's the deal with like, when you feed me? Like, why do you feed me at this time? So I'd prefer to be fed at these times. I'm like, oh, okay. And then that's it.
So you're looking for a business conversation.
Greater understanding.
Yeah. Just like how would you use that 60 seconds to like understand the dog better and him to understand you better so you can have a better relationship?
Pretty good.
Yeah, I like thinking about that stuff. Well, because I'm a fucking idiot. So as far as ghosts are concerned, I'm kind of separate on this. I don't know. I'm not positive about anything because I am more of like a deist or agnostic these days. I don't really consider myself an atheist anymore. I just think that that's too declarative. And I think that's always been the case. I think it's kind of weird, like the weird part about atheism. So, but it's hard for me to wrap my mind around that something happens other than just dying when you die. I can't understand that, but
that's a good point. Yeah.
There's no doubt that there's so much we don't understand. Like, and I don't mean that in some sort of mystical way, like just about the nature of things. It's entirely possible that there's an entire mode of dark matter, like an entire mode of matter that we don't even understand. Like that's how deep it goes. Like in the empty negative spaces, right? Like we fundamentally don't even understand the building blocks of how anything works. And I often say it's fascinating that the universe works with rules. There's rules. Things just happen certain ways all the time. And when they don't, something's wrong. The math doesn't work. And you're either like near a black hole or the math is wrong. And I'm fascinated by that. And maybe somewhere in that math and in that understanding and in that spirituality is something deeper. Mm-hmm. But it's hard for me to believe. It's Occam's razor, right? Simplest explanations tend to be the right one. Did all civilizations in primitive times stumble upon an afterlife because it was real or because they couldn't let go of the people who died? Right. And I get it. Sure, when you can't explain things, it's like, well, he's dead. We'll see him in the next life. And there's someone who's watching over us. And it's the fucking big fireball in the sky that for some reason shows up in the same place every day. And it's like, yeah, you don't understand anything. So it seems in some way primitive to think this, but there's no doubt that I'm so compelled by horror and as someone who and I put this in quotes, suffers from sleep paralysis myself. And I don't really suffer from sleep paralysis anymore because I know how it sets on with me, which is a really important thing that people that get it, if you can figure that out, you can just avoid doing it and you're good. And for me, it's sleeping on my back. Otherwise, I often get sleep paralysis. So if I just sleep on my side or my stomach, I'm totally fine. I can understand people even thinking that is some sort of spiritual ghostly experience. It feels like it. I mean, I can tell you that from the most famous rendition of sleep paralysis is a Renaissance painting of a devil sitting on a person's chest. You know, that's like a famous painting and it's perfect. So you can understand these different interactions and imagine living in a technology-less world. Let's say you're in Europe in like the 1400s and you're walking through the woods. It's like, dude, I can't even imagine how fucking horrifying that is. And like what the things you might see or hear or what the suggestion of horror, you know? So I just think that's in some way what makes horror so scary in some way. So you have things like Dead Space, we were talking about earlier, which is not really about spirituality, but it actually is in some way.
A little bit, yeah.
Unitology or whatever they call it and all of that. But on the other hand, you have just stuff like, I for some reason in my mind, I keep coming back to 2015's The Witch, which is like a perfect movie that symbolizes
it's a great one.
Some scary shit and what I guess that could all be. And I don't know. So that's where I stand. I must admit, I don't think I've ever had like a ghastly experience outside of sleep paralysis. And I think that, like Dagan said, there is something scary about the Northeast of the United States. I've always felt this way. I mean, and having grown up and lived there, especially on Long Island, which we joke around is like just a big Indian burial ground. I mean, it is. It's just you can't dig or do anything there without running into something. And there's something a little creepy about that. Plus all the weird shit the military does on the eastern end of Long Island and all the stuff with the aliens and all this like shit that people think is going on. I'm like, so there is something scary about it. I felt more scared being on Long Island than I ever did in, say, California.
You know what? That's a great point. I never felt like that in LA. I lived there for a little while. Spent a lot of time there with you, Colin. Yeah, it's a different dynamic. And it could be just that it's newer and, you know, it has less history and it comes down to that. Cog, what about you, man? Where do you stand on all this ghost nonsense, Scooby-Doo shit?
This is a good one. I'm glad you brought this up because it's a funny story because I have a debate with my best friend on this one. And I'll start off by saying, all right, no, I don't, right? I don't believe in ghosts, but I'm kind of with Colin in the sense that I don't want to be so definitive, right? That because I don't have the data, you know what I mean, that there's no way there's any spiritual thing going. I'm really in alignment with Colin, because what he said in reference to the whole idea of ghosts, I feel like as human beings, like there's a part of me that wants to believe in it, because as human beings, I feel the finality of death sucks. Right. So if someone dies, they're gone forever. You know, it's kind of cool, this idea that there is still unsettled business, or this person's soul or what have you, right, still roaming around and so on and stuff like that. So I get that, because of the abruptness, the finality of death, and the hope that, hey, when we die, like that's it. Like there's nothing else. That part's scary. Like boom, you're gone. You no longer exist. And let's be honest, you're forgotten, unless you're a very, prominent person that's impactful in society, you're forgotten fairly quickly, even by your loved ones. So that part of me will always hope that, in a sense, that there is truth to it, right? For me, I've never encountered it. The funniest thing is my best friend, his name is Paul, and he's Italian, and his thing is like, I call him the Long Island medium. Right. So anything go crazy. Yep. I felt it. I felt it. And I'm like, fam, like I'm not there with you, but as long as you do we need, like, it got so bad. It was a trip. I forgot where we went. It was like, yo, we gonna go, like, usually do a trip to Vegas one time when we go to I forgot where it was we went. And it was a trip I really wanted to do. Right. We made the plans. We get the homies. Everybody's there. Big house. Everybody's cool. It just so happened we went to Airbnb, it was near a cemetery. And it was so happened that this cemetery, you had to walk through the cemetery to get to the locale for the place. So all this
location.
And you could tell they must have like known about, like, they're doing cemetery tours. Like the owners are having fun with this whole thing, right? So I'm like, oh, this is a great deal.
Yeah, I was about to say, you guys probably saw the price. We're like, man, why is this so cheap? Oh, it's actually a fucking cemetery.
Amazing. At night, we got to walk past this cemetery to get to the spot. So we get there, and all this time, he's trying to hold it together. He's not letting me know he is terrified, frustrated that we even picked this location. And he was like, I'm telling you, like, if it wasn't for you, then my man, I would have never done it. I wanted to leave and bail the whole trip. And he's like, I'm seeing things like that. He told me, he's like, you didn't go to the basin to take out the trash. I was like, why? He was like, there were dead flies there. That's a sign. And I'm like, oh, man.
He's in.
Yeah, like, you're going to ruin my whole trip. Like, I had to, as a friend, put my ego to the side and say, look, if this is really affecting you, all right, we may have to make it a rain. He's like, no, I'll get through it. We got 2 more days, that kind of a thing. And that's what I really realized, how real it is to him. Like, it really, it's a strong belief that there's presence and there's still entities, and yeah, he connects with it, you know what I mean? And he's like, I know you don't believe it, kind of thing. But we try to have a middle ground, and I try to be respectful of it when we, do places and go to stuff like that. So yeah, that's the extent of it. I thought this was a great topic, because these are the discussions that me and him have all the time. He's he feels it, man. He really believes strongly in it, and we always get it. I guess for me, the last point I'll say, just like, for me, I always, because everything for me is technical and scientific. So I always come from the standpoint of, okay, if I heard this weird sound while I'm sleeping, okay, there is a reason behind it or whatever. But it doesn't negate, I will give the spiritual people this, it doesn't negate the eeriness that you do feel, and the feel like, yo, what is that? What if that is something, right? Mm-hmm. And until I encounter it, then maybe my theory gets busted. So that's I'm gonna figure that shit with you. Well, I was looking forward to this topic that you said.
Well, that's why I brought up The Witch, was because, and I don't know if everyone's seen that movie, but it reminds me of, like, what would you do in that situation? There's no one around you. Like, it's not like you have a phone, or like anyone even gives a shit and anyone would even believe you. And there's not many people even on the continent.
No, nobody around. No technology.
It's just nothing. So strange. Like, that to me is true fear. Regardless of if there's ghosts or not, that's true fear.
I would have never made it back then. Like, maybe if you're lucky, you got a flintlock rifle and a candle. And you know what the compelling thing, especially being a kid back then, like, when it got dark out, like, it was dark until the sun came up the next day. Like, that's it. Good point. What I mean? Like, you had a couple of candles maybe, but when they burned out, it was like, you really had to wrap your mind around darkness back then.
Good
Like
point.
that was half your life.
And that's where being a night owl, I think, comes from. Like I talk about this all the time because I'm so fascinated by it, because I used to do it, which was like biphasic sleeping, which is the way people really used to sleep back then. Like they would go to bed, it would get dark, they would go to bed, they'd wake up in the middle of the night, they would be up for a few hours. This is like when a lot of people would like write their correspondence,
So
have
crazy.
sex, like do a lot of things, read, and then they would go back to bed. And then they would wake up when the sun came up. And that's the way people slept for time immemorial until electricity.
Mhm.
Electricity is literally what stopped that from happening anymore.
Yeah.
Good point.
Right.
Um,
Good
Because
point.
they couldn't be productive. So
Right.
it's like, I guess I'll go to bed.
And so I think that's like really built into us. And I think why some people like to nap, like people, siesta and stuff like that. I'm like, well, your people were doing that at some
Hear
point.
that.
But yeah, so I don't know. I love eeriness and scariness. Again, Dead Space coming up again. I just love sci-fi horror and all these different things, but that's not really about ghosts. I definitely believe in aliens. Like that's a totally different thing, like a whole different angle of horror. Obviously serial killers exist. I don't know if they go into your dreams, or anything like that.
No
I don't know if you're
inception.
thrown into a lake or whatever the fuck happened to Jason. I don't even
Well,
remember.
that's the thing. Like with aliens and UFOs will be a future topic, I'm sure, on the show. But that's the thing. Like, where is the definitive evidence? Why can't we have that?
We might be under occupation in the next episode. Everything's happening so fast.
That's true. Might be a whole different dynamic. But that's the thing. Like, I'm so curious. It's kind of a morbid curiosity, though. Like, when we get that definitive evidence of the supernatural or aliens or both, or like, how does that change the dynamics of the entire world? Not just religion and spirituality and all that, but just our very existence. I think that's why it can't really happen, because I think that'll be the true definition of chaos. It's like people's reaction to that, society's reaction to having that knowledge. I just can't even, I do imagine it because it's fascinating. And like, if you were reading a novel about it, but in real life, maybe it's better that that the mystery
Ignorance
stays.
is bliss.
Right. Exactly.
I think that's the problem with social media is you just get to see things that typically you never saw before. And so like now everyone's just privy to a ton of information that would rather be kept secret.
It's a great point.
And so I just think ignorance is bliss in that case, right? Just like the less you know, the better.
Yeah, there's
Run
such
the
a thing as knowing
blinders.
too much. And
Yeah,
I also think,
so.
we have to kind of broach the evolutionary nature of like Cog, you had said something about how people forget quickly, even those you're related to. And that had just come up recently on another episode we were talking about where where I was like, who's your great grandfather?
Mm-hmm.
Like about how quickly it becomes like, I don't fucking have any idea about my people, really. We have family trees and shit, but I don't know them as individuals. But there's something evolutionary about the body and the mind trying to say, like, you got to move on. And like, you have to get over it. You must move on. Like, there's definitely something there. And I don't know why I'm so, anthropology is just this unknowable thing. It annoys me, but man, imagine like the nervous breakdowns of a caveman, like with like someone in the nerve. Like, how did everyone deal with grief? How did everyone deal?
Yeah.
I'd be very interested to know how that all went and why we kind of have been able to compartmentalize better. It's the same thing it came up last time we were talking, because we were talking about death, and specifically how we don't really, like, even the most depressed person, I mean, maybe the most depressed people, but even depressed people, I am one, we don't think about death almost ever. Like, we're not engineered to think about it, even though it's happening.
Oh yeah.
To all of us.
If you're here, it's happening.
Right. And so it's very weird. Like the body has just these little branches. The butterfly effect of the evolutionary trail got us to this very compartmentalized place. And I like to think about that too. So ghosts could be this way to kind of circumvent that. I think religion is very, very human as well. Like, I do wonder if we meet another intelligent species, would they have also stumbled upon religion? Like this idea of like the supernatural and the natural, would they also have the same framework?
Sure.
We're probably going to find out really soon, since we're shooting their balloons out of the sky. All right. Are we satisfied on this
Should
topic?
we be fearful though if they're using balloons? Like if that's the maximum of their technology, right? Then we're up, man. We're doing great.
Yeah, we
Totally.
got this.
There was a book about, it's actually Harry Turtledove. He came up, I don't know, on another episode recently.
He did, yeah.
He wrote a book about how this like lizard-like alien species came to Earth on a reconnaissance mission in like 900 and AD, and they see like knights in armor and shit like that, and they're like, this place fucking sucks, and they go back to their planet to like get ready, and then they come back and invade. But when they come back, it's like the 20th century, and we fuck them up.
I love that. I mean,
that's so empowering.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like they have we fight them with like helicopters and fighter jets, and it kind of like works. I don't know why that came to mind, but yeah.
But we were just here. You were on horseback. What?
Right, exactly.
Like bows and arrows. Like, what the fuck happened?
I guess the inference is that like they have encountered species that just evolve way slower. That there's something interesting and special about humanity.
That's fantastic. Love it.
All right. What's the next topic? Let's look here. Oh, Matty, let's go to you for some life hacks.
Life hacks, indeed. Yeah. So that's my topic. The idea of pure efficiency, the two birds, one stone mindset. It's something I'm very passionate about. Just navigating the day-to-days, right? Like there are, I'd say, extreme life hacks like driving above the speed limit to get to the place you need to get really just a minute early. But what I was really thinking of was, for example, trying to get a little more movement in my day, but just given the nature of my work schedule, it's tough to do that. Especially, I hate when it gets darker early because typically what I do is like get out around 6 and during the summer the sun's not going down till like 7:30 possibly, and that's always been really nice. But when it's getting dark around 4 or 5, my days end earlier, so I don't want to go out on a walk when it's pitch black. I want to get a little sunlight on me. I'm trying to find these compromises, but for example, video editing takes time. Like there are things that just take time during my day-to-day. And so what I did was, you can kind of see it behind me. It's a little under the desk treadmill here. And what I do now is I'll slide it out when it's time to edit, and I will walk on this for probably, an hour and a half and get that movement that I need in so I'm not so sedentary, but I'm going to edit my video while I'm doing it. And it's been one of the greatest life hacks because I've been feeling a little better, a little more active, better blood flow, but I'm still getting what I need to do done. And so it feels like more of a treat when I step outside. Another life hack I was thinking of when I was in high school, what I like to do is, let's say big games coming out that day. Of course you have study hall on certain days, so you got to navigate that, maximize the time. But I was a big, some people you'd catch doing homework on the bus on the way to school because they forgot the night before. For me, I was big on like if something was happening, I do my homework on the bus to home. Because to me, like if I have study hall for 42 minutes and then I got a 20-minute bus ride, I'm like, that's an hour of homework. Then, that's one less hour I got to get off early. So I'll actually, instead of getting off Xbox at 7, I'll get off at 8 because now I bought that extra hour. It's like the economy of life to me, buying minutes everywhere, hours everywhere. And, I've shared a bit about, like, this is the last one. Now I'm curious if you all have life hacks to pass on to me. I share the good word of the Fasta pasta, all the time. I'm a big proponent of using the microwave when you can, when sensible, not for frozen meals, but for food that typically requires like a stovetop. Like when I make pasta on the stovetop, I don't like leaving the running stove. There's not a comfort level there. Like I just, you may just cover the top and let the pasta boil, or let the water boil, throw the pasta in. And some people will just walk away. I just can't run away from that running stove. I can't walk away from a microwave. So I like sometimes when I need to go do something for even 15 minutes, take the Fasta pasta out, fill it up with water, drop the pasta in, microwave 15 and a half minutes, and I carry on until I hear the beep, and then back I go. And it's just nice and prepared for me. So for me, again, it's the economy of life, as I like to call it, just getting those extra minutes in, dividing your time wisely. And again, the two birds, one stone mindset. So I'm curious, number one, if you guys are normal and enjoy just one task at a time, or if you're like me and you like to just see how many things you could do at once and do them right at the same time. So whoever has ideas spinning in their head, I'm just curious what's coming to mind for you.
Cog, talk to us first.
This is difficult for me because it's like, I know where you're going, Matty, but it's like, with me, there's so much going on. So the way I what's the word? Compartmentalize?
Compartmentalize, yeah.
There you go. Is, okay, what is the most urgent? And who can I afford to piss off for one more day to buy me some more time? So as far as the efficiency thing, because I agree, like I'm like you, I am just doing so much. And like you mentioned earlier, like you're the central part, and I think Colin even mentioned too, the central part where everything kind of relies on you. So you can't really go out. So that part's difficult. I think that's just how I try to navigate. The way I took your topic is actually different. I actually took your topic from a standpoint of like, efficiency things, things around the house, or just like, so the way I looked at it is I'm a techie. So like, I'm always on my phone looking, I'm moving around, and I'm the worst. Like, I'll always drop the phone. And like 2 times, like in water, in a toilet.
Like,
so I have now become the life hack of what to do now with this. Like, it's down to a science. It's like, one, most people are like, oh, you got to get the rice and you got to put it in.
Yeah, so I've heard.
Nah.
No. Okay, let's hear it.
I used to think that you get the silica gel. So the joints from the sneakers that you get?
Yeah.
You get the sneaker gel, you put that in a Ziploc, you throw it in there, you do your little 24 hours for the day, you save in your phone. I have learned that out. Silica gel, bro. What? That is the key, the secret to life.
It makes perfect sense.
Yes.
It really makes perfect sense.
Incredible.
So anytime I get new sneakers or anytime, I get happy when something has silica gel in the packet. And I just store this all around the house because I am a klutz. I'm always dropping the phone. I'm the worst with stuff like that. So that was my hack. That's what I thought you was going.
I like that. No, that's great. Yeah. I didn't know the power of this gel. I'll have to look into that. And so do you have like bags just lying around?
Ziploc bags around the house. It's in like a cabinet in the kitchen, but it's ready to go. It's ready to go.
I love that.
All right. For tea bags or anything like that.
And I've saved a friend's phone that way.
Oh, okay.
I saved the
friend.
I saved the. He's like, yo, I've never heard this. I said, bro, I got you. Silica gel, baby.
Good for you, dude.
Ziploc, boom, let's go.
Love that.
Love that.
What other life hacks do we have, gents?
Dig.
I love this topic, but I got to say, it made me feel pretty bad about myself. I'll explain. So the whole thing, right? Time goes so fast. There's only so many hours in the day. So these things are all about conserving time, efficiency. So we can spend the time doing what we really, doing what we really want to do. How can I get through these other things or menial tasks or whatever efficiently? I kind of love that. But I have to say, I'm not programmed to think that way. And I think this is I've been aware of this for a long time, but not in relation to life hacks. But I'll explain what I mean. I think all my creativity goes into my day job, animation, creating art, podcasting. And then when I come away from those things, I think my creativity is just so applied to those specific tasks that when I'm just doing my normal day-to-day, shuttling the kids around, cooking, food shopping, dealing with the house, whatever, like I just don't take a creative approach to it. It's very strange. And I actually realized, I was like, life hacks, wow. And just watching like those processed assembly line YouTube videos on top 50 life hacks, I was like, I was marveling at the creativity. I was just like, wow, I'm embarrassed that I don't think this way for somebody who fancies himself as a creative and a pretty good creative, I hope. Like, just I like every single thing in there. Like I realized, first of all, that these are just like grudges that you have with something that you see needs improvement or something that bothers you. So, and how can I change it? So it was like, oh, how to resurrect the candle that's burned down too low, or how do you make a Band-Aid really stick? How do you rig your olive oil so too much doesn't come spilling out? I think I found like 30 uses for water bottles that it was like, whoa, I cannot believe this is an art form. And I don't think this way. And the other thing about me that is embarrassing, but I have to cop to this, is that I'm very set in my ways. So even if something takes longer or something, I'm just like, I'm comfortable doing it this way. Like Helene's like, why don't you put the dishes in the sink? In the dishwasher? Why are you hand washing them? I'm just like, I don't know. This is just how I do it. Or my daughter's always yelling at me like, Dad, why can't you 5 days a week? Why can't you drive to dance this way? It saves literally 8 minutes. And I'm like, I just don't go that way. That's my only reason. It's like, so I'm the opposite of life hacking. I'm just like stubbornly sticking to my guns. So I love this. I'm taking a little inspiration in this. The only thing I do, I realize since the kids are grown and they have to be shuttled everywhere, is I try not to waste a trip. And it's not really applied to conserving gas or anything like that, although that is a perk. It's like, I know I'm going to drop my son off at basketball. I'm going to pass BJ's on the way. So like, let me pick up a thing of paper towels. So because I use paper towels like crazy. It's always trying to, again, like Matty said, like kill two birds with one stone. It's like, how can I just use my time efficiently, chart my course? I know I'm going to be going there. I know I'm going to be waiting for an hour. Can I run to Kmart and grab a couple of things, whatever? That's really the only thing I do. So now I'm inspired to try to be a little better because I want time to play video games and watch Netflix and shit. So I'm kind of using that as my inspiration of like, and things, just in the spirit of being observant. It's like, okay, like I know, what did I see? Oh, when you have a stick of butter, which I hate. I'm a big tub of butter dude.
Okay.
But if you have a stick of butter, they were like, you know what? Can't get it on the toast? Put it in the cheese shredder. What? I was like, what? Every single hack on that
cheese
top
shredder.
50 video is like,
one.
That's interesting.
I was like, these are brilliant
I thought they were going to
ideas.
say shave it at the top because I knew people that used to eat the butter off the top.
Well, it's a similar thing.
Yeah, it's like where they would just take it off the top, be a little thinner.
A little thin, little.
Also, just leaving it out. We put our butter in the fridge, but a lot of people just leave their butter out, which I'm kind of down with that, but it does get a little weird. But it gets so perfect when it's at room temperature. It's just perfect. You can do whatever you want with it. Perfect for grilled cheese, perfect for French toast, obviously buttering your toast. Matty, let me say this. You're speaking my language.
Nice.
So here, my whole thing is, and it kind of connects back in a neat sort of way to the vacation topic, which is that I'm a manufacturer of free time. Like that's the kind of stuff I'm into is like, what do I have to do? How can I get it done? And how can I just maximize not doing anything else? I actually have no agenda typically outside of those things. I often say on Sacred Symbols that I am very ambitious with games. I play a lot of video games. I play more than the average bear, no doubt. But I'm always like, I'll get this done by this point, and then I'm going to play this, and then I'll get it done by that. And I'm never on schedule with that.
Same. Yep.
I have enough time to do it. I just don't do it sometimes because I really just want to sit around and do nothing. And there's something about just loading up a bong or smoking a joint, laying back in the just have my phone in my hand, or I'm like on YouTube or just talking to Micah, hanging out with the dogs, doing whatever, and not really having an agenda. That's kind of what I'm operating under. So I'll tell you a few of the things I do. First of all, I'm a very, and I think people obviously know this, I'm very OCD, very particular. This is obviously why I'm into trophies and things like Sacred Sales Saga and all these things. I love numbers and statistics and weird shit like that. And so my OCD works for me in certain ways. Like I have to work out every day. So I have to like go at least do 30 minutes on the elliptical, maybe go lift some weights, hopefully do more than that. And I try to operate in that. So when I'm doing that, that's when I try to listen to like my news podcasts. And when I'm especially lifting weights, I'm listening to like the news podcasts of the day. And then when I'm going on the elliptical, I like have a little more energy. So that's when I try to get a lot of my music listening out of the way. And because I have to listen to music every day, like just listen to it.
Oh yeah.
It's important to me. And so there's like little life hacks like that. And then there are kind of more moderate life hacks. I brush my teeth in the shower. I'm a huge proponent of this.
That's why I thought you would gravitate towards this topic when I picked it, because I remember hearing that. I was like, Colin has the two birds, one stone in the shower. Where else does he do it?
Right. I contend that brushing your teeth in the shower is, now obviously you going to bed or whatever, you brush your teeth outside of the shower. But when you take a shower, you brush your teeth. Because typically you're like, going out, you're getting up in the morning or whatever, you're preparing. And I just feel like that's a time saver in and of itself. You're already getting wet, you're getting acclimated, then you're done brushing your teeth, you put it down, then you just start lathering up. Because you don't have to do the whole 2-minute, getting set up, I'm thinking, I'm getting things out, relaxing.
Yeah, man.
So there's that kind of smaller life hack. And then the bigger life hacks have a lot to do with the way I play video games. Like I'm a big engineer of, even if I'm not doing it quickly enough, trying to engineer quickest ways through video games to get platinum trophies.
You are.
I respect that.
And so if there's a game that I really want to play, that I'm really, really excited about. So think about like a first party Sony game, like Ghost of Tsushima or The Last of Us or something. I'll play that straight up. I don't care about the trophies at all. And I'll just play it and enjoy it. But if there's a game coming like Hogwarts Legacy, which I'm playing now, which is good. I don't like it as much as I thought I would actually, but it's good. And I'm like, very seriously in the days leading up, analyzing the Power Picks trophy guide and looking at all these different things, just trying to figure out like, what do I need to know and what am I going to miss? And just trying to manage it so that I'm not frivolous with the time, not ruining or spoiling the game. I love Power Picks' spoiler-free walkthroughs for collectible guides, for instance, like where it doesn't tell, it just says, when you get to this place, look down this corridor and get this. It doesn't say anything else about anything. So it's not really spoiling things for you. So I like to I try to be very judicious in that way. But I think you would laugh about this stuff is that I try to, and I don't know if this makes sense. I've never tried to put this in the words. Whatever I do, I try to make sure that the next time I do it, it can be done as easily as possible again. So an example is that when I used to ride a scooter around San Francisco back in the day, I would bring it into the garage, and you could just into my garage at my house, and you could just, bring it in and then close the garage door. But what I would do is I would wheel it into the street and back it in right to the garage, so that when I left the next day, I could just zoom out.
Yep.
And so Micah makes fun of me because I'm like, you got to. I bother Micah about things like trivial things all the time. Just to
back the car in.
Yeah, and I'm like, you got to start backing the car in. And when we're walking the dogs, I'm like, these guys back the car. Look at these guys. Like, this is a family that backs their cars.
They got fishy day off.
Yeah. And so like little things like that, I love it. When I'm doing yard work in this generation of, I mean, a lot of industrial landscape services won't do this, and I worked for one of those once. And they're obviously gas machines are a lot better, but everyone's using electric powered stuff, but it doesn't last forever. So your lawnmower, your blower, your weed whacker. So my yard is such that I have a very efficient system where it's like I mow this part of the lawn, I go charge the battery, I do the weed whacking and like get everything straightened up or whatever, charge that battery, get the lawnmower battery back out, mow the backyard, do all this thing. Very efficient, very, very efficient. No wasted time, no wasted motions. And I think that I'm really into no wasted motions. There's a really awesome, I'm a huge Stuart Copeland fan, the drummer of the Police. There's an awesome performance of him in 2007 playing Wrapped Around Your Finger. And he's playing at a percussion setup with like xylophones and all these cymbals. And it's fucking amazing. People should go watch it. But Mike and I were watching it and I was like, watch, he has no wasted motion. When he's not hitting something, he's using a hand to stop a cymbal. It's all this kinetic sort of, nothing seems rushed, nothing seems out of place, even though it's very complicated. Yeah. And I try to like have some movement of my life like that, not quite as elegant, certainly not as sonic, but where I don't feel like I've wasted or squandered time, because I don't mind wasting time sleeping. I don't mind wasting time just being in bed, dicking around, like just watching TV, whatever, or laying in my recliner or eating and reading a book or being in the pool or what. I don't care about any of that. It's just that I want to maximize that time. And in that time, I have no interest in efficiency. But in other times where I don't want to be doing things, or I know I need to fit things together.
Sure.
So like working out and podcasts like really fit together for me. In fact, like one really feeds the other. And so yeah, I totally get it. And I'm thankful to have that kind of mind, because I feel like without it, I wouldn't have been operating on the level necessary to be able to do the things that I do. I'm not saying it's a higher level or a better level. It's just the necessary level.
Yeah, definitely. Like it just saves you time, because they're like there's like echelons of life hacks. Like there's ones I was looking up that let you kind of navigate your own, if you will, shortcomings. Like they had one where they said if you're hitting your alarm in the morning while you're half asleep and you're sleeping in too much, like put your phone in a cup. Then you just won't. You have to like consciously like reach in, look for it. By that point, you're up, right?
Fantastic.
Or they showed like batteries bouncing. If the batteries bounce more than once when you drop them, they're dead. It's just like, that's how you know before you even put them in. It's just those little, I guess that would be qualified as a shortcoming, but those like mini life hacks. So yeah, it's just the time saver ones are the ones I'm always most fascinated in, because it's like, I think how one question I always get, especially like leading into this year was, with what I do, it's like, well, how do you find the time? You review games, you run 2 channels, you're making a game. And it's just like, these are the types of things I do. Like, and it's funny because I don't do them because like out of necessity, like I would do them anyway, because I enjoy doing them. And like, if I'm free one day, then the life hack feels even better, because now I've got even more time. So I don't know. I find it empowering day to day. Like, even if it's 5 minutes, it's like, it's as simple as, microwaving some food and stepping away and like getting my setup ready for retro rebound. Like, what do you guys feel about do you feel the urgency I feel when the microwave timer is ticking down? To me, it's like a good self clock to be like
a time bomb.
Yeah. It's like, when I hit that start, I immediately have the mindset, like, what can I do in 5 minutes?
Totally.
Like, every time, bro. It's like,
I like
usually,
pretending I'm in a movie. you know, or like,
Yes.
like when I'm uploading something to Google Drive and I'm like, come on.
Yeah. There's no greater focus I have in life than in the 5 minutes ticking down from my microwave where I'm just like, okay, we got to move, man. Like I got to get the camera set up, put the memory cards in. Like I'm just dialed in those 5 minutes unlike anything else.
That's a good one.
Good.
For sure.
Right.
Anyway, I appreciate all the responses. Yeah, I was very curious how you guys hack, if you do, your own life.
Yeah, good
very
shit.
well.
Kyle, I do have a problem brushing your teeth with warm water though. I can't get hip to that.
Yeah.
That's why the
I never
shower
thought
thing
of that,
just
but-
I can't.
So you lost
I
your-
don't know why.
actually-
I don't even know why that would bother me. It's not going to be scalding hot water, hopefully, in your mouth. But like,
Do you guys try
No.
cold showers at all? Has that been a place you've explored? That's like my latest. I'm happy you said that,
hilarious.
Dagan. Is it just like flick the switch in my head? I was like, that's something I wanted to bring up, but like,
yeah.
that's been my latest hack. I've been reading the health facts on cold showers,
Really?
and they're like, oh, these are good for you. You know, provided you don't have
Ooh.
heart issues, which I don't. And they're like, these are good for you. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I don't like hot showers. I don't.
And
No,
I
never
okay.
did.
I'll die
Yeah.
early and take hot showers, I think.
Hot shower guy.
See,
yeah.
I was like that, but I was starting to feel like shit after showers. Like I would step into a scalding hot shower, and in that 15 to 20 minute window, I'm like, this is incredible. I'm relaxed. But afterwards, when I have like a headache, I need to lie down. I'm like, wait, I feel so shit. So I look it up, and I'm just there's like people are like, yeah, some people's bodies aren't compatible with the hot shower, and I'm just like, okay,
That's
like
gotta
this is
be what
way
it
out of
is.
my comfort zone, but should I try the cold shower? And I have been, and Dag, I'm curious if you had the same thing. It's like night and day difference for me now.
Yeah,
Almost.
it made me feel. It's so funny that you bring this up, Matty, because I think it was me, Kyle, Chris, and Dustin on one of the early Constellation shows. We were talking about
I
this
listened.
very
I think it was the
topic.
first episode.
Was that the very first one?
Yeah.
And we kind of, I just, for some reason, hot showers while it's going on is very enjoyable. But for me, it was my skin. Like it felt like it was drying my skin out. And it was kind of odd for me because I'm not particularly fair. I don't have a problem with dry skin or anything like that, or psoriasis, God forbid, or anything. But for some reason, it just made me feel, it wasn't a good feeling post shower. So I had to just get hip to taking tepid showers, like lukewarm showers. And also because of that, I don't take long showers because who wants to be in that for a long period of time? And it just works for me. And, couple that with the Dove bar. I can't use the actual soap, a little too tacky. So couple the short tepid shower with the Dove bar. That's just what works for me. Everybody else in my house takes steaming hot long showers, but it's just not for me.
Yeah, it's funny because that Dag, that is a life hack in a sense. Just maybe you didn't recognize it because to me, like the idea of I was like that. I took really long hot showers. Like I would be in there for up to a half hour, just letting the whole day flow out of me. It's like this is great. But then as I started taking cold showers, I still got that same relief, but I was out in 5 minutes, and again that moment of checking the clock. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah,
wow.
look how much time I saved.
Yeah, look at that. This is
There
great.
you
I'll
go.
save the water bill too. This is wonderful. So, that was one I became privy to. I'm happy you brought it up because it just had to talk about it.
This is great. I'm inspired. I really need to start. I'm just embarrassed that I wasn't more on that creative level because some of the stuff is ingenious. I can't believe the thought that goes into it, or just, from an idea perspective, it's like, holy shit, this is really bright stuff.
It's endless, man. Like my girlfriend or fiance is big on sustainability, and when she like pots her plants, she uses like leftover plastic bottles. Like she doesn't buy new pots, doesn't buy it. Like, it's just that type of stuff. That's what kind of turned me onto it. I was like, she's an incredibly efficient person with that stuff and doesn't care at times how it looks. And I really like that. Like, it speaks to me. So I started looking into it more and more because I was already doing these subtle things to try to save time. And I was like, well, if you're saving like an object, like what more time could you save? So it's awesome.
Sweet.
When I use a plastic bag, I charter a boat and then I drive it into the middle of the Pacific Ocean where that huge island of plastic bags is. And I throw it on top.
Hacking these water bottle hacks. You don't understand. Like 30% of them were water bottle hacks. That island does not need to exist.
Yeah.
If you're just hacking with the water bottles, with the Deer Park.
If my question is if the garbage is all collecting, why don't we just Why did we take it out of the water and throw it out? An endless cycle of going and getting it, throwing it out, and then
just claim it's decreasing. Like, look, we're getting rid of it, only for it to just come back in the ocean.
Why can't Lego go get it, round it up, and like put it into their products?
That's a good idea.
Right?
I wonder if they could do that.
Lego is apparently building a factory in my town. I didn't know that.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
It's gotta be a fun gig. I feel bad for the people who make the booklets that teach you how to build the Legos. Like, that's just gotta be
technical writing 101,
I
baby.
can't imagine.
Yeah.
Like, you get an engineering degree and you're telling people how to put together Legos.
They're so good. That's the high end. The low end of that trade is the IKEA people. So you got the ones up here, and then you got the ones down here.
Dude, I would argue the IKEA people are working with a lot less because they have to somehow do it with like no language. Like they have to find it's like making the golden disc for the Voyager satellite. Like they have to figure out some way to communicate with everybody.
That's a great point. It's got to be pure visual depiction.
It's like some picture of a dude and like holding a screwdriver.
Lego is too. Lego is too. You know,
it's funny. I don't know.
Lego's got the budget. I guess IKEA got the budget. I don't know.
I haven't used Lego in so long. But maybe when they build that factory, maybe I'll go moonlight there.
That would be sweet.
All right. The final topic, my friends, this week, I wanted to ask you guys about this is I want to talk about the perfect crime. But more specifically, I want to talk about all the ways that you can get caught committing crimes today and how fascinated I am by this. I fall down these rabbit holes as I've done my entire life where I just get really interested in specific things. And I'm watching a lot of true crime right now, very similar to like a 45-year-old housewife. Like, so a lot of 60 minutes or not 60 minutes, 48 hours, a lot of just these random like dreading and all these random YouTube channels. And it's really interesting. And even when there have been certain notable murders recently, like the Gabby Petito murder, that chick was actually from Long Island. And I was like really interested in that at the time. And then there was like those murder of the 4 students in Idaho. That was like really mysterious. And that's actually what got me. And that's what really got me into it, because it was like they caught this guy with like just a little bit of evidence and then like followed it. And it was like his car appearing on some other person's Ring doorbell. And that was it. That's all they needed. And I was like, how the fuck does anyone commit crimes today? Someone reminded me that it was I can't what's the Mulaney, the comedian?
Yeah. Well, yeah. What's his name? It's not. Why can't I think of his name? It's Mulaney.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, Mulaney or whatever. He does this bit where he talks about how people used to rob banks in like suits and they would like announce their names. And then they would like machine gun their name in like the fucking vault. And then they would just drive away and like get away, and they just would do whatever they want. And it's kind of interesting. I've been reading about old serial killers both in the United States and in Europe, and there are like really notable ones. People that have killed, like there were highwaymen in like the early Americas, that these brothers that killed like maybe 50, 60, 70 people and totally got away with it. Like people could do whatever they wanted basically. And slowly over time, you had to get caught in like very specific ways. And slowly over time, it's come to this point where I literally have no idea why you would even bother. I don't know how you and I'm sure people get away with shit, but even I was thinking about recently, there was a fascinating thing with the Golden State Killer, who was like this robber. He was a rapist and a murderer in California over this long period of time. And they caught him by using Ancestry.com.
Wow.
Like that's literally, they had the DNA. They just entered like from crime scenes. They entered it in. They found like 12 different connections, and then they just like reverse engineered it and found him.
Wow.
So it's like if you committed a crime in the 60s, 70s, 80s, I'd be shitting myself. If I were you, they're gonna find you. But these days, there's like in the Idaho case, they released information that the guy's cell phone was pinging a tower that would have only been pinged if he was near their house. So like you have to leave your phone behind. I guess I was just wondering, like, have you guys ever thought about this? And what do you think you could commit a perfect crime today? What would it even be? My assumption is that it would have to be something clean, like robbery or something like that. And maybe you get away with it. No body. And it reminds me of like these thought exercises my friend Glenn and I used to do in high school. It actually looks psychotic in hindsight, where it'd be like, how would you, like, we would write down these things, like, what would you need to think about to commit the perfect crime. And it all flooded back into my mind. And even half the things we would talk about then are moot now, just based on fucking Ring doorbells and cell phone towers. And I don't know. I was just thinking about this, and I wonder if you guys have anything to say about it. Dag, I'll throw it to you first.
Yeah, man. This is, have I ever told you guys about cat burglar Dagan? This is something I think about a lot.
Yeah, let's go.
So for me, I mean, first of all, Kyle, you had mentioned this in your email, so I had to research it. And not only was it sickening and disgusting, these University of Idaho murders, but I also felt guilty because I didn't know anything about it. Fascinating story, though. And of course, this guy is now on trial for first-degree murder on 4 counts. And it's really compelling story. And then I also realized in tandem that I really don't necessarily follow this stuff very much, but it is a fascinating topic. It is interesting, right? I guess what you're saying, Kyle, I guess any kind of crime, right, where you got away with it at any time in the past, any era, it was kind of the combination of having a good plan and just luck, right? You'd know bystanders, maybe you greased some hands along, maybe you greased some palms along the way or something like that. Now, with the advent of the eye in the sky everywhere, I'm not sure why anybody would commit any kind of crime. Not only is you going to get caught, probably somebody's going to film it and put it on Twitter within 10 minutes.
You're going to get caught.
Like social media, technology, science, DNA, evidence. Like it's really not, this is not an era that's going to be kind to committing any kind of crime, violent crime. I've always been, this is a kind of a fantasy of mine. It's something I find very romantic. And I think it comes out of being really obsessed with heist movies. So it's again, like this is a little kid Dagan, like being charmed by the Ocean's movies and James Caan's Thief and British gangster movies and Heat, Al Pacino's Heat and all that kind of stuff.
Classic.
Love the idea of a perfect non-violent crime, one that doesn't necessarily have, like a quote unquote victimless crime. In the Ocean stories, right, it's kind of charming because they're ripping off like some unsavory, unlikable dude or some faceless, greedy corporation. So the players are all kind of, you got the mastermind, you got the con man and the tech guy and the femme fatale and the driver and the demolitions dude. Like it's a group thing. It's just like this group of best friends and we're going to be set for life. Everybody's take is going to be like 200 million and nobody gets hurt. Some of the movies people get hurt, Reservoir Dogs and Heat and stuff like that. But I'm talking about, the ones with the more playful tone, George Clooney and
like
Brad
Oceans.
Pitt
Yeah.
thing. The Oceans films are a good example. But I think about it a lot because I'm like, wow, just like one jewel heist, like I steal one epic diamond, I could just animate whatever I want for the rest of my life. This is sick. No one gets hurt, and no one gets hurt. Somebody gets stolen from, but that type of thing. But it is interesting because I think pulling off a crime at any, again, at any recent decade, any point along the way, right? Decades old, I think it was always tough. Because luck always plays so much into it. I even think of that when I watch a crime film. It's like you have to not only does you have to devise and hatch this amazing plan, you have to pull it off to a T. Everything has to go well. You're hoping everything's in place. When you walk out of the building and you're getting into the getaway car, hopefully there's no cops pulling onto the block. You can't account for everything. Even if you're like the most ingenious arch criminal, there's going to be other factors at play, which is kind of a fascinating thing. And it does take me back to like being a cinephile and just being in love with movies and thinking about that stuff when you're watching it. Another good recent example is Ben Affleck's The Town. Really cool, very, very kind of gritty Boston heist movie, recent, type of thing. And that story too, like he's got a crack FBI agent on his tail in that movie that's already kind of gunning for him. But that type of thing where you got to be on top of your game. But even if everything's going to a T and you're dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's, you're going to, there's factors that you really can't account for that you just gotta kind of keep your fingers crossed for. So that's fascinating for me, but it's amazing. Like with this Brian Koberger story, this University of Idaho stuff, it's interesting because when I think I read a big interview in Variety about it. That's how I really learned about it. And, it's always the saddest part for me when you go back and you think like people saw this in him. Like people saw this years before it happened, that he could definitely be a dude that could have gone in this direction. And that's a fascinating part of the story, because if you got this would-be murderer, right, it gets very Minority Report, because you have this would-be murderer or this guy who, seems unhinged or crazy in some way, or somebody like that seems like they can do harm. I think about this with school shootings too. It's like all the evidence is there. How do you intercept it? Because they're not really guilty of anything until they commit the crime, right? That's a fascinating part of the conversation that I was reminded of too. So, lots to digest there, but that's where I went with it. Cat burglar Dagan's my playful take, because there's something still very romantic about committing a crime where nobody gets hurt. I think that's very Dagan. But the murder thing, it's like, how does anybody? Yeah. And now supposedly this guy's got a crack defense lawyer. Everybody's jumping on that this person's making like whatever it is, $80,000 a month defending him and stuff. But that's another thing. Like, how do you legally represent somebody who's obviously, seems to me, I mean, I'm no detective, but
he left. It bothered me because he's a criminologist.
Yes,
he was getting his PhD in criminology. He had a BA or a BS and a master's in criminology, and was getting his PhD in criminology, and was obviously like obsessed with this topic.
Yeah.
And you leave the knife sheath behind? Oh, I don't know about that, dude. Very strange. Very, very strange. And you return to the scene, which he did as well. I mean, that's like
and killed 4 of the roommates out of 6. Like walked right by one of them on the way out.
Yeah. Very weird.
Strange.
Very weird crime. And it shows the spectrum of like the colonial time where like people were just getting away with shit. And then it shows like what I was saying, like the mid-war period or the interwar period where it's like, my name's Tommy Johnson. And then like he would like tell you his name, and we're the Milwaukee boys, like just like all that kind of shit, and like they would just get away with it. It's just hysterical. And now it's I don't know, man. I don't know. Cog, where's your mind on this topic?
Fascinating topic. I'm in alignment with Dagan a lot in the sense that, I think that in this day and age with technology, cameras, like any, a victim crime, man, like you're going to be hard pressed to pull an ad off. You really are. Like you really, there's just too much going. And I'm the guy like you, Colin, where I will sit there and I will watch, like I get engrossed with like forensic investigations. Like I will sit there and like, how did they catch this person? And when you find out the forensics involved and this minute hair and this and the and then we talk about from the technology piece, the cell phone towers and everywhere, you're pretty much documented everywhere. Then the other thing I started to shift to was like, okay, well maybe, cybercrime, right? And the fact that's prevalent. And hackers and stuff like that. And, I mean, even, look, things are, I mean, just recently, I think, was it Norton got like compromised. And they were like the password kind of people that they would like me, that passwords are so prevalent and everyone's like, okay, we need like a password store or company. So you're seeing like now the hackers now targeting those companies that are these repositories for all. So I was like, okay, that's probably where it goes now, like the hacker, that's probably like the best thing I can think. And then, even then there's still timestamps. And then we start to see that the governments are now hiring the hackers, the ones that the few ones that get caught to kind of get, their own,
white hat, right?
Yeah. White hat. Yeah. That's probably where it goes. I mean, other than that, man, it's really difficult to not leave traces. And then from a computer standpoint, two-factor authentication, timestamps. There's usually some form of a digital footprint. So the only thing I can think of is you have to have a coordinated inside job, like a collaborative effort inside the building, right? And it's like, okay, we're going to do this. So that's the modern day Dagan cat burglar start. Okay, we're going to all conspire, this way you're going to cover up my tracks, you turn off security camera A on this computer or whatever. That's it. But it's just so the safeguards are so difficult now that it's impossible, but it's very difficult. So this is a good one, man. My only personal crime is I want to break into Activision. I want to get the source code from Fall of Cybertron and War of Cybertron, and I want them to bring that back out. So whoever can help me do this crime, I'm taking it because it was delisted in 2020. Those are the best Transformers games, and my beloved High Moon Studios has been regulated to making Call of Duty games, and I'm very furious. So that's the one that I want to leave.
Perfect crime.
So I want to get the source code for Fall of Transformers.
Listen, Activision, we're the defining Duke boys.
Get your Tommy guns.
Got my Tommy gun ready.
Matty, what do you think?
The thing that really kept coming to mind as you guys were going through all different angles of it is I don't know if people care about committing the perfect crime and getting away with it if our situation in the United States is indicative of anything like when they listen to that voice in their head and they decide to, say, kill someone, they either die with them eventually, like, we just saw with Michigan State what happened where the shooter had taken his own life afterwards. They go with them. They did what they wanted and that was it. Or they just do it knowing they'll get caught. And it's very demoralizing to think about because you have to just be in a super unimaginably dark place to go so far that I think almost the perfect crime doesn't exist. And that's why we're just seeing people kind of carelessly kill and whatnot. But I would definitely fall in line with like Cog's thoughts on cybercrime being the place you'll probably see at least attempts at that because this is more espionage and not like in the terms of burglary or whatever, murder. But I remember years ago, I went to this place. I recommend it to anyone who's in the New York City area. It's called Spyscape. It's a museum built around spies. And It was there I learned about Robert Hansen. Now I'm going off of like rough memory now, but this guy was like a double agent between like the United States and Russia during, I think it was like the 1970s ish. And he was doing this for, I think, multiple decades. Like he was just somehow getting away with it on both ends. And it's like, that's just, at least to me, unimaginable now. Like just someone playing both sides of the fence, just trading information for financial gain endlessly. I just think we're in a different era of crime now where people don't care. And like, to drill the point home, I think it's just so easy to get caught that even a Ring camera, like we have our own personal surveillance devices. Like I have security devices here at my office and we have it at home and whatnot that these companies are built around it, right? There's Ring, Simply Safe, and so on, where there's more surveillance than ever. Like I remember, I feel like they're just set up less to toll booths. Like now what happens is I drive through like a little arch and I'll get a clean picture of me in my car with my license plate. And they find where I live. They send me my bill. They're like, hey, you went through the toll booth. We didn't pick up your easy pass. Here's, you owe us $2. And I'm just like, holy shit, man. Like you pull that crime off and you just drive on the wrong road and that's it.
Good point.
Right. That's it. And it's just, we're kind of in that, what do they call it? Big Brother level era of surveillance where it's just, I don't think much of it because I don't have nefarious intentions. I don't plan on committing any crime. So, a lot of people are very bugged by it. For me, I'm just like, whatever, I got nothing to hide anyway. But like in the case of Colin's topic here, it's like, I sit there and go, why would you even bother? At least the internet's more of the Wild West. Like maybe you could try. But as they always say, that digital footprint is forever. And now you can only scrub the scene so much in person that, I know it's idealistic, but I just wonder why try?
I'll never get the pictures of my enormous dong off the internet. Never.
Yeah, your imprint forever.
My mushroom stamp on the internet. Yeah, it's fascinating. I agree with you guys. I keep going back to the show Mr. Robot, which I just never finished. I need to go back and just rewatch that. But that's really about trying to commit the perfect financial crime, and with technology. And it is. You're right. Like there's just to get caught is easy. I think you almost have to not get caught by luck and carelessness, I would assume. Like people not being sophisticated enough investigators or metadata being lost or whatever. I just
negligence.
In some way it makes you feel safe because the United States has been getting progressively safer. Until 2020, the United States was getting safer and safer. It had been never been safer in the United States since before COVID and all that happened. And so things are just naturally progressing in that way. And it makes you wonder, like, is human nature changing? Is like economic reality changing? Or are people just more privy to the fact that it's just way harder to get away with things? I mean, even think about having an affair. Like, Micah and I joke around and, she's like, better not leave me for another woman. And I'm like, Micah, it's a joke. And I'm like, imagine like how would I even do it?
Yeah.
Like, how would I even have an affair? Like, when is it happening? When I never leave the house? Or is it like that she's texting me all the time or like calling my phone or like it's so interesting. Like so even that kind of stuff, like just what I would label as like the dishonest, it's just way harder to get away with that. Think about people back in the day being like, oh, in 1982, you're home with your girlfriend. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go out with the boys. And then you just go and like, sleep with another woman. It's like, how is she really going to know that? Unless she like follows you. But now she could be tracking you on your phone. I saw this thing. A dude got caught. I watched it just 48 hours. A dude killed his parents and got caught because he was hiding the body and the body is in another place. And he came up on Snapchat with a geolocator in that place. And someone took a screenshot of it.
Oh shit.
And that's how he got caught. So it's like, dude, like it's just these things, the incalculable risk. And so in some way, I feel like it keeps us safe, which is good. Yep. But I am worried about the overbearing nature of just how much everyone knows. Like I'm cognizant, even when I'm talking with Micah and we're walking down the road walking dogs, that like everyone's Ring doorbell is listening to us. You can't really have personal conversations on the street.
That's a big one. The Ring.
That's a good point.
Yep.
Like every fucking person in my neighborhood has these
house.
Yeah, it's like, to me, it's just like it sucks. Like you can't even go outside on your porch. Like someone's picking up what you're saying.
Yep.
And they're not trying to, but they are. And you might not want them to even hear what you're saying. So that kind of stuff makes me a little more insular. And then Matty, it's funny because what you said about, well, I have nothing to hide is what I used to say when I supported the Patriot Act, which was a huge mistake. And it's not so much about that. It's about like just the way they can abuse it. And what people know about you and all of the rest. So it keeps us safe and it keeps us honest, which I think is good. But there's something, and it's not with crime specifically, but there's just something lost about the little moments, I think. Like we're always, at least I'm always aware that I'm on camera. I'm always aware that someone can pull out their phone and video record you at any moment doing anything. It's just a very strange time. It makes me not want to leave my house, frankly, even more.
Every human being over the age of 11 has a camera in their pocket. Almost every single person, so especially where we live in North America, in the US. Kyle, what you said was fascinating. One aspect that's fascinating, and you may be able to speak to this having, followed all the contemporary crime, true crime stuff, is how all of this technology now, forensics, DNA, cameras everywhere, the Ring thing is like a huge thing, especially in suburban neighborhoods and stuff. You can't come into a suburban neighborhood and not be picked up on camera, anymore. But I wonder how it affects crime retroactively. You said that before, nodding back to an era where it was quote unquote easier to commit a crime, easier to get away with something, be in the clear. So I know, part of that is statute of limitations. Part of that is resources. How much do we have, how much crime can we actually combat now versus opening the books on stuff that was committed decades earlier. But that's a fascinating part of the thing where you could now solve these previously unsolved crimes with new technology and sort of point it retroactively and say, now we could go back and figure these things out. So that for me, that's one of the most fascinating parts of this. Is
that's
that
Golden State Killer, 100%, dude. They totally nailed him. He hadn't committed a crime in years, and that's
he was retired.
That was like, that's the thing is there's got to be some sort of, you want to obviously imprison these people and catch them and like make them pay dead to rights. But there's got to be something pretty torturous about, having committed a crime, like a heinous sexual crime in like 1980, right? And then you get away with it. But there's DNA, and then you learn about DNA, and you're like you have no concept of what any of this is. And then slowly over the years, it becomes this fringe thing, and then everyone knows it, and then everyone understands it. Now everyone knows what it is. Now we're sharing it with each other, and you're like, dude, it's only a matter of time before someone walks into that fucking crime lab, or like that, and looks at this old case file and said, we have DNA. We might as well enter it in the registry and see what happens. They're going to find a bunch of your family members, and even posthumously, they'll figure it. I think they're going to figure a lot of this stuff out, and that's not justice, but that's some kind of justice. I mean,
I think so.
Closure.
Yeah. So
good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting to think about. I wanted to talk to you guys about that. It was because I was watching this thing about a guy killing his wife, and he got caught backing his truck out of the garage by his neighbor's Ring doorbell, and they just got him because he had said he didn't leave that night or something like that. So it unraveled this roll of lies just based on this one little thing. They just went to the neighbor's house and were like, "Can we have the footage?" He's like, "Yeah, all right." and I actually have a much more sophisticated security setup, like camera setup on my house that I even need. Like when I moved here, I didn't realize like how simple it could be, because I lived in like apartments for so long that like I have like legit cameras around my house. Like, and like one of those boxes, and a set up like a TV in one of my rooms so I can see it all. Yeah.
And
I can bring, did I do it to you? I make people laugh. I can bring it up on my 70-inch 4K OLED in my room, or my living room, and all of this. So it's hysterical in that way. But I realized I didn't need to go all out like that. Like you can get very basic shit that well,
it's peace of mind. It's peace. These Ring cameras, though, I'm telling, there was a really shady thing that happened up the block from me. I'm in a very suburban neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood. Knock on wood, there's rarely an incident, but some teenage kid was ringing my neighbor's doorbell at like 4:30 in the morning. And she had all the footage on Ring, and she sent it to all of us while it was happening. And he looked like he was, drugged out of his mind. Like he was ringing the bell and then doing this. Like it looked like he was fixing to do something that he felt bad for doing, but that I don't know what was going to happen if she opened the door. But everybody had this kid on their footage, and they tracked it. The police basically tracked this kid down because everybody had him on their camera footage. The whatever stoop camera they had, front porch camera they had, and they tracked him down in like minutes. So It's like that's the world that we're living in now. It's And he was saying like his car broke down, but like his bike was laying on the front lawn. It was really shady.
It's dead to rights. It's dead to rights kind of shit. That's the best part. Is it's just total dead to rights kind of shit. It's what I say all the time about. I love watching the renegade child predator catchers on YouTube. It's like some of my favorite content. And these guys, no one gets these guys more dead to rights than these dudes. Like where there's just nothing you can say or do. Nothing. There's
no way to back out of
they
that.
fucking pull the funniest shit too. Like they'll be like, the guy will be like denying it. They'll like catch him in a Walmart or whatever, and they'll be denying it. And then like the guy will just pull out his phone, like the guy being caught, and they're like, "Oh, is your phone ringing? We're calling you." Like that kind of shit. Like that kind of shit, like just getting him totally dead to rights. Like we know exactly who you are, and like you've been talking to us the entire time, and all this. And then
you see the pure horror.
It's amazing humanity, or lack thereof, of watching this stuff. And I've said this time and time again, that one Colorado group makes them call their wives, which is the funniest part. I actually just fast forward to that part now of the video.
That's hilarious. I didn't know about
They're like,
this.
"We'll call the cops, or you can call your wife, or like someone close to you," and then they like do the whole thing. Yeah. And then they end up getting arrested anyway. See, that's the funniest part, is like, you're getting arrested anyway, dude. Like,
right.
None of them seem to know this. None of them seem to know. Like,
holding on to the end.
Like they just hang around and we'll do a 90-minute video thinking that they're going to get off. Like, so just making it so much worse, it's hysterical.
Wow.
All right, my friends. Well, that was a fun episode of Constellation. Thank you guys for joining me today.
That was a good one.
Matty, closing comments.
It's fun. I love doing this show. It's fun to shoot the breeze with you guys and have these kind of like the balance of like, it's funny, but then have these insightful conversations. Like it's a really like up and down show, right? Like we were really getting serious about the work ethic and ghosts, but then we're laughing about life hacks and we're talking about the perfect murder. I just love, I imagine the audience feels a lot of the same based off what we're seeing people write in. It's just it's just a real fun show to do. Actually, closing comment more important than that.
Yeah.
Dagan, did you make those tacos?
No, but I was just thinking about this last night, and I was it's so this speaks to my laziness. I was food shopping, And I was like, I need to go down the Mexican aisle so I could get this rolling. And I just didn't need anything else down there. So I was like, I'm not doing it.
All right, no worries. Just
but
when
I'll keep
you
you posted.
by
The next time I'll have it. I'll have my feedback.
Okay, no worries. No rush. I just had to follow up because I just am trying to validate this recipe a little bit more. That's all I had to say.
So good. I don't think you could go wrong with that one.
No, I don't think so either.
Lord Cognito.
Yo, that was a fantastic episode, gents. Really loved it. It's very organic. That's what I like about it. And when we do go off on the tangents, it's really relatable. And I love this one. I love this one particularly. Great episode choices. Great topic choices. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you guys are vibing with it. We're gonna split you up next time, so that you guys can we can divert you. I think
we got to venture out.
Get more combinations. We're doing it more for scheduling reasons now than anything else. But in the future we're gonna start splitting them up. So before you say anything out there, yes, we'll get them on with different combinations of people. And I'm glad you guys are digging it, and the audience out there is digging it as well. Dig, closing comments.
You guys are my oceans. You guys, I don't know where I fit in. Kyle, you're the mastermind. Cog, you're the ladies man. Matty, you're the con man.
Oh,
I'll be the getaway driver. I like driving. Kind of fancy myself a wheel man. I've mentioned that on maybe 7 out of 8 constellations already. So.
Maddie's gonna be the wild card.
Yeah,
you
don't know what you're gonna get out of me when I step into that storefront.
That's my Reservoir Dog right there.
That's right. Yeah, we're gonna do the slow mo. We'll be well dressed.
I'm a terrible liar.
He fits it.
I'm a terrible liar. I'm the last guy you want like stepping into the store or getting ready to kickstart the robbery. I'll freeze up because I'm just like, shit, I'm lying. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, you got to be the wild card. You know, like. We're going to employ you in the middle of the heist and just see what happens. Yeah. Like what,
or like maybe that's how badass we are. Maybe, Matty's like a really truthful con man, but it doesn't matter because we're such a crack team.
Look, I'm going to rob you. It's going to happen.
And there's no way you could stop us.
All right, my friends. Thank you for your time today. Appreciate you. Thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support of all things Last Stand, Constellation, Sacred Symbols, Knockback, Defining Duke. Couldn't do without you on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia, merch, laststandmedia.store. I don't know when this even goes up, but we'll see you in Texas pretty imminently. And we'll see you next time for more of this. Until then, goodbye. Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman, and is edited by associate producer, Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.